Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday, Wednesday, thank you, and Friday. And on Friday, this week, we're not going to be here because we're going to be at UMass over in Dorchester. We're doing a special show over there. It's going to feature Governor Maura Healey. He's going to be with us for an hour, taking our questions and yours. And we're going to be joined as well by Paul English, who started Kayak. He's a big philanthropist. Gina McCarthy, who used to run the EPA for Barack Obama. And Marcelo Suarez Orozco, who's a big deal over there. He's the chancellor at UMass. If you're in the neighborhood of Dorchester, we'd love to have you stop by. It's free, no tickets or RSVPs required. Hello, Jim.
Hi there. And if you want something really exciting and can't wait till we're at UMass on Friday, 12:30 today, all 7 performers from a Pulitzer Prize-winning and Tony Award-winning play, A Strange Loop. It's opening formally tonight. Marjorie and I saw it on Sunday. It is amazing. All 7 performers are going to join us, perform, talk, that sort of thing. It's 12:30. I would get here if you are not here now. By now, you've undoubtedly seen footage of police officers moving in to clear college campuses of pro-Palestinian student protests. Hundreds of students, college faculty members have been arrested across the country, and here in Boston, with police using force to clear encampments. Some have called for harsh crackdowns led by the National Guard. Governor Abbott in Texas cheered the use of police force to break up demonstrations at University of Texas in Austin, saying the protesters belonged in jail. Columbia University students were cleared by police in riot shields last night after occupying a school building and disrupting student life. But at Brown University and Northwestern, some student demands have been met with negotiations from school leaders. Northwestern agreed to disclose school investments to Israel, establish a temporary community space for Muslim, Middle Eastern, and North African students. Demonstrators have agreed to maintain just one single tent set up on the university lawn and risk suspension if they violate the terms of the agreement. And at Brown, there are discussions to begin. Encampment's been taken down, and the university says they'll take a vote on divestment later this year. So at 877-301-8097, we have a bunch of questions. What's your reaction to these crackdowns across the country? Are you comfortable with this? Are you worried about the precedent that it sets in terms of free speech on college campuses, on other issues in the future? And who do you really believe is calling the shots here? Is it school administrators, or is it Republican extremists in Washington who equate any support for Palestinian individuals in Gaza with anti-Semitism? The number is 877-301-8970.
Well, you know, kudos to James Pindell. He's the first person at the Boston Globe. Pindell, sorry, James. The first person at the Globe or anywhere I've seen put it so succinctly, saying the reason that these demonstrations are being treated differently on college campuses, and they are, is because Republicans control the U.S. House, and they're using that position to shape public opinion. I mean, it is obvious.
By the way, who else has said that every single day before James wrote it in the Globe?
You said it, Jim.
Me, yes. I mean, it is totally clear. It's Virginia Fox, who chairs the House Education Committee, and Elise Stefanik, and Mike Johnson did that BS performative thing where he showed up at Columbia the other day. That's all this is about, don't you think?
But I think that the proof is that we all remember Charlottesville when marches with these tiki lanterns were shouting, "Jews will not replace us," over and over again. That was the one that Trump said there were nice people on both sides, and a young woman was killed that was among the demonstrators.
Yep.
You know, the people that were not rushing out at that point to talk about the disgraceful support of then President Trump for that, or that demonstration itself. I mean, that was the reason Joe Biden said he ran for president, was watching Charlottesville. So I think to pretend that they're all worked up about anti-Semitism, I mean, there is real anti-Semitism.
Oh, you mean the Republicans who are screaming about this now? We're not worried about Jews will not replace us.
Well, I think
because Donald Trump was there as obviously there.
So is this about Donald Trump, or is this about anti-Semitism? Now, that's not to say, you know, there was another harrowing anecdote about anti-Semitism, scary anti-Semitism in Columbia, where these kids, these Jewish kids, came toward an encampment there where they were protesting, and kids were calling out, "We have Zionists who've entered the camp," and it was a very scary situation.
Right, universities got to provide them security in those situations.
But the thing is that these protests are not about anti-Semitism. They're about the war in Gaza and women and children being indiscriminately bombed by the Israeli government of Netanyahu. That's what these are about.
But don't you think that it's the university presidents capitulating? I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, that none of them have stood up to the Republicans in the House of Representatives, and they're not standing up with them here.
The faculty,
and as I said before, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
This does set a horrible precedent. Whatever the next issue is, if it turns out public voices are, it's fine to do these kind of crackdowns when there's not violence. By the way, my attitude is that, blocking access to something, unless it's like a hospital, the reality, it's been going on forever, and it's been tolerated in the spirit of, let's say, free speech. Maybe not constitutionally protected free speech in a private setting, but free speech, as we love to believe exists on college campuses. This is a really scary precedent for the future if administrators are able to get away with this.
Well, we should point out that the faculty are not such easy pushovers as the administrators. The MIT faculty has voted support for the pro-Palestinian encampments as they continue elsewhere around Boston, including at Harvard and at Tufts. And at Emory University, we watched the cops yesterday at Emory University, where I would say using excessive force, particularly one scene against a middle-aged faculty member, a woman who was just, I think, talking to someone that was down on the ground.
Yes.
And they grabbed her and she shoved her, and they shoved her to the ground in a very kind of violent way, and she was not a young woman. Well, the faculty at Emory is also holding a no confidence vote against their president after the arrests and what they probably saw on television yesterday. So the faculty are standing up.
Some.
And some presidents are knuckling under completely. And again, I'm very suspicious of people like Elise Stefanik. I don't think she is, and who is worried about anti-Semitism at all, because where has she been?
I think it's a wonderful point. By the way, before we take calls, let me just explain what is going on at Brown. The student protesters decided to take down the encampment only after university officials agreed to talk about divestment from companies that support. Some people have been critical. They think it was capitulation. It's a totally different strategy, I guess, is the point. And by the way, only because I don't want a headache today, we know there are people, what's the guy's name? Kaimani James, the guy from Boston?
Oh,
who clearly, when he was talking about killing Zionists.
Yeah, what he said was...
He's been banned from the campus at Columbia. What did he say?
He used to be in the school committee in Boston.
I know he did, a student representative, I know.
Yeah, he said, Zionists don't deserve to live, which is horrific, and be grateful that I'm not just going out and murdering Zionists. So clearly... Right,
but the point is, the point he's trying to make is he's the aberration. There's always somebody on an extreme. The vast majority of these protests, unless you know something that Marjorie and I do not know, are trying to gain greater sensitivity and support for innocent Palestinian civilians, tens of thousands of whom have been killed, and many more who are at great risk. By the way, the other line, I don't want to get into this, I shouldn't even bring this up, but that Blinken, the Secretary of State, is meeting with Netanyahu, and Netanyahu's line is, whether there's a ceasefire deal or not, we are going into Rafah, where there are 1 million Palestinians. In any case, 877-301-8970.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
I was watching television last night when they were showing the encampment at Columbia.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many kids there were, maybe 100, 150 or something. And apparently there were people inside the building, whether they were students or outside people, I don't know. And they had done some destruction inside the building, which is obviously against the law. But the people that were outside, they kept talking about having to prevent violence and violence and violence. They're all kind of standing around singing. There was no violence. There was no hitting. There wasn't even any shouting. They were just singing these songs. So the idea that these are like some of the violent anti-war protests that were around when we were kids, that's not what these are.
877-301-8970. What's your reaction? Do you have concerns, or do you think what a lot of college administrators are doing with these crackdowns and arrests is the right way to go? By the way, the mayor is going to be with us on Tuesday, and the mayor here said she agreed with the police chief in terms of clearing the encampment at Emerson. So obviously it's something we'll talk to Mayor Wu about. Ann in Cranston, you're first on Boston Public Radio. Thank you for calling. Hi.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Really appreciate you discussing this.
Thanks.
I live in Rhode Island. I'm very proud of President Paxton for what she's done. The goal of higher education, college education, is to educate people. It's to help them, as they say all the time, think critically. That does not happen when you shut down any kind of discussion or any route to discussion or any giving them the opportunity to express their views peacefully. And I think most college presidents, administration have gone overboard. Their first line of defense should have not been call the police.
I agree with you.
It should have been talking with these students as the adults they are, and as the adults that they are planning on sending out into this world with that lovely piece of paper.
And beautifully put.
Yeah.
Thanks for your call. We appreciate it. You said it really well. 877-301-8970.
Sam in Gloucester, thank you for calling.
Hey, Sam.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I wanted to say that I am happy about the protest. I don't think it's productive at all for administrators to have police come in and dispel protests. I don't think it's going to stop any of the protesters from continuing to protest. I also think that Greg Abbott and the politicians calling for these to stop should shut up and stay in their lane. And, I think they should leave it to the administrators and the students themselves to come to solutions.
Well, that requires the administrators to have backbone is the problem, Sam. And I think most of them have either stayed silent, which I think is reprehensible, or capitulated to pressure from Republicans in D.C. So if they were acting independently and in the spirit of speech on college campuses, I would be with you. I just worry that they have become the tools in many cases of people like Congresswoman Virginia Fox. Sam, thank you for the call. You know, by the way, I'm thinking about what you said at the top of the show, which is really an important thing that totally exposes the Stefaниcs and the Foxes. Jews will not replace us is being chanted in the streets of Charlottesville.
Pretty virulent.
And because Donald Trump
anti-Semitic chanting
said they're fine people on both sides, the sycophantic cowards in the Republican Party obviously can't criticize that because Donald Trump doesn't allow them. But students who are protesting the murder of innocent Palestinians, they're the anti-Semites. That is really a fabulous point.
Well, it's a fairly obvious point. And the other thing you have to ask yourself is, suppose this were a different kind of protest, and Pindle has touched on this too. We had Occupy Boston down here for, I think it was 2 months, on a public square. It wasn't, now the Emerson kids were on a public walkway in Boston, that was different. But these other kids are mostly within their own campuses, right? They're inside Harvard, they're inside Columbia. So we had Occupy Boston down here, I think it was 2 months, on a public space right down by the financial district. They were eventually cleared, and there were 46 arrests, which is far fewer than
on the Greenway, right?
Yes, they were on the Greenway, and there were tents, and it was the same deal. Protesting Wall Street. There was Occupy Wall Street, obviously in New York. They were all there for quite some time, and the cops came in eventually, but it took a lot longer. Suppose the kids were having a fossil fuel protest over in the middle of Harvard Yard or at MIT, and they were in campus out there. Do you think this would have gotten the same reaction? Certainly not from Republicans.
Well, if Elise Stefanik tells you to jump, the answer would have the same. But your point is very well taken. Mark in Cambridge, you're next on Boston Public Radio. We're talking about what's going on the campuses of America. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Hi.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting a little feedback. I'll just ignore it.
Okay.
So I disagree with your framing. I don't think it's as simple as, good-hearted students protesting the terrible deaths of innocent Palestinians in Gaza, which is certainly happening. But what's going on here is far beyond that. You've got virulent anti-Zionist and sometimes anti-Semitic rhetoric. You've got students vandalizing buildings in Columbia, looking like the Munich terrorists from 1972, looking out these windows with these masks on. You've got intimidation and
Mark, with all due respect, I'll let you go. That comparison is so wildly inappropriate. There were murders there. There were murders by those masked people. And so go on, but that is, in my opinion,
that's not
over
a good
the
one.
line.
That's not a good one.
Keep going, Mark, with your basic point, please.
Okay. All right. So I'm not saying it's the same thing, Jim, obviously. I'm saying the violence in the rhetoric and the being masked and taking over buildings, that image reminded me of that. I'm not saying it's the same.
Okay, I hear you.
These anti-Israel protests, it's not just about divesting from companies that support Israel militarily. It's about divesting from Google. It's about severing academic ties. This has gone much further. And by the way, I am the farthest thing from a Republican, a Mike
No, you
Johnson
don't have to.
fan,
It's
or
fine.
anybody else, or Stefanik.
Mark, why
Okay.
shouldn't you
I'm
be
a
able
liberal.
to? Why shouldn't you be able to protest, saying that whether you agree with it or not, that they should sever ties
be
with
able
any
to pro- you should be
corporation
able
that
to
does
protest.
business with the Israeli military, whether you agree with that position
You should,
or not?
I think you should be able to protest.
Okay.
I don't think you should be able to take over a campus.
Okay, I got it.
I don't think you
But-
should be able
but-
to take over the grounds.
But again, Mark, they're taking over a portion of the campus. There has been some violence. They did go into a building last night at
Well,
Columbia.
the violence has got to be addressed. There's no question about that.
But again, this is kind of like Black Lives Matter. And everybody kept talking about, the
Antifa.
violence of Black Lives Matter. That was mostly peaceful. I mean, we were all at the protests that were around Boston.
Well, Marjorie, I disagree with you a little bit there. I mean, I think the analogy is apt. I mean, I think there was a lot of peaceful protests with Black Lives Matter, and there's
Right.
also a lot of looting and a lot of vandalism and a lot of violence. And you have people on the left, where I stand, kind of dismissing it and rationalizing it. And I think that's what we're seeing now as well.
Mark,
And
before you
yes,
go
Mike
away-
Johnson and those opportunities. Yes, please.
Before you go away, the arrests that have been in Boston, within the sound of our voice, where's the violence been there?
As my understanding about, if you're talking about clearing the alley by Emerson.
The alley, Northeastern, yeah. Where's there been violence?
Well, I think the violence is resisting arrest. No.
Well, yeah, I would say no. But Mark, we appreciate your call. We really do appreciate your call. Thanks.
The problem
and
with
please call
saying
us
the
again.
violence is with resisting arrest, that's after the cops got there and tried to arrest people.
Sort of like bootstrapping.
Yeah,
oneself,
I don't think that's a fair one either, Mark. People, I mean, that's saying the cops caused the violence, I guess, is what you might be saying there. But I don't think it's what you want to say.
There's the point is there's a lot of history, and Mark, and I don't mean to single him out because I really appreciate his call. There's a lot. I don't want to get into this only because I know what your reaction is going to be, so I'm going to say this very carefully. Quite a long time ago, I participated. I was not doing media. I was not a journalist then.
Okay.
In an anti-apartheid thing at Harvard that shut down a dinner. The goal was to shut down a dinner where they're going to raise zillions of dollars. It was the 350th or the 450th and whatever. And you know what happened? The dinner was shut down. They didn't arrest, and they lost a ton of money. The decision was made by the Harvard administrators not to arrest maybe couple hundred people who are blocking the doors to the dinner. Now, so that may upset some people, but the point is there was not an arrest first philosophy. And I think there is an arrest first philosophy. And I don't believe, I repeat, that most of these college presidents believe in it. I think they've got to do it because they were terrified when the president of MIT and Harvard and who am I leaving out? University of Pennsylvania were put in a really tough spot and didn't respond very well in front of Congress.
I think you can't separate this from the liaison or the partnership, whatever you want to call it, between very powerful white evangelicals and Jewish Americans who like the idea that Trump did of moving the capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, between the votes that go for Republicans from evangelicals linked to a very strong stand with Israel. I mean, a lot of conservative Jewish people are very much Trumpsters, and I think that's part of this too.
Well, I think more of it is just gross opportunism by Republicans in Congress who really know how to scare the hell out of weak
and who
university
really
leaders.
can get people worked up about this for the election.
I agree that.
I mean, remember how many people were thrilled? The white evangelicals, they couldn't wait to move the capital from Jerusalem to, and all their talk about, John and the Bible and the Christ coming back the second time. I mean, they linked all this stuff together. So I think that's a big part of what this is about. Anyway, we're talking about what's going on with these protests. What's the right way to protest here if you are protesting against what's going on in Gaza? And what do you think this means for future protesting in the United States of America, where we're supposed to be able to be free to protest in a peaceful manner? And what we've seen lately is a lot of people getting arrested. The number is 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, broadcasting from the Boston Public Library and streaming on youtube.com/GBH News.
In southern Israel, the places that Hamas attacked last October have drawn visitors from all over the world.
Trying to determine if this feels respectful or voyeuristic, but mostly I feel like I need to see it to be able to truly process.
War tourism or dealing with grief during war. Next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And JTA, Joe the Architect, an architecture, interiors, and branding firm committed to creating spaces people can live, work, and dine in. Joe the Architect. Let's make someplace great. Learn more at joethearchitect.com. And Boston Ballet, presenting Carmen. This daring program features the anticipated return of Jorma Ello's Carmen and one of the most celebrated moments in classical ballet, Kingdom of the Shades. On stage now through May 5th. Tickets at bostonballet.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As you've heard us say about 1,000 times, we will not be here on Friday. We'll be at UMass Boston at University Hall. Whether you're a UMass Boston person or not, you are welcome to join us for the show, which will include the governor, former EPA administrator who's from Dorchester, Gina McCarthy, and a whole bunch of other people. And then next Tuesday, we'll be back with Ask the Mayor, Michelle Wu, and we'll talk about this subject with the mayor as well. She'll be with us from 1 to 2. We're talking about the college demonstrations. What's your reaction to these crackdowns that are happening on some campuses? Do you think it's the right thing? Do you think universities' leadership are going too far? Why do you think they're doing it? And what does it bode for the future? Hey, if Anthony Blinken's trying to negotiate a ceasefire that would include the release, apparently, of at least 30 to 40 Israeli hostages and probably a lot more Palestinian hostages. If the ceasefire would happen tomorrow, what do you think happens to the demonstrations?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think the obvious other concern is starvation, and we have built this port out in the ocean, but I don't think we're getting much to them at this. So I don't know.
But the other issue, I think it depends on whether Netanyahu decides to tamp down this notion that I'm going into Rafah. Whether there's a ceasefire or not. But obviously that would change the dynamic in some fashion. But it hasn't happened yet. Blinken is meeting, I think, today with Netanyahu, or has in the last few hours. Bella, you're in Andover.
I'm sorry.
Bella, hang 1 second, please.
Here's Paul from Worcester. Republicans are against students taking over a building to express their dissatisfaction about something. Oh, come on. They're just tourists. That's a good one.
By the way, that is a point that I'm embarrassed we didn't bring up.
That's
they were
very
fine
Yep.
with taking over the damn Capitol and trying to prevent the certification of the election.
They weren't violent with the guns and the clubs and all the rest of that stuff.
And
the
kicking the
bear
crap
spray.
out of law enforcement, right.
Here's a good one, and this is a good point. Jim and Marge, I think a protest against fossil fuels would be different in the sense that other students wouldn't be feeling targeted by protesters. This seems to be a huge part of the problem. Jewish students feel targeted and afraid from the signage and messages in their protests. I mean, that is a good point, because I think there are some Jewish kids who do feel very nervous, like those Jewish kids.
And the university's got to make sure that they feel secure and safe. The question is what they're doing, the route to getting there. And again, I'm not a college administrator. I would say the answer is no. Bella in Andover, Michigan, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, yeah, so I want to first preference my comment with I think Israel's definitely in the wrong here, and that's not really what I'm here to debate. But the protests I have sort of issues with. I'm getting an echo. But anyways, the problem is, as the texter just said, I think that there's a lot of people on campus who are feeling uncomfortable because I walk through the center of campus every day, and there's a banner that says, "Long live the Intifada." It's not something I love to see every day walking through campus as a Jewish student, and I don't love to see our graduate employees union accusing Hillel of money laundering. There's a lot of anti-Semitism entering the rhetoric, I think.
What is the university, hey, Bella, you can continue in a second, but what is the university doing about the feelings of you and other Jewish students on the campus? Are they doing anything, or are they just ignoring it?
I mean, very little, which may be the right answer here, because where I was going with this is it makes me uncomfortable, but it's free speech, even if it's awful speech sometimes. It's what we have to live in sort of a world with pretty, a lot of free speech.
Bella, which school are you
They're doing
talking
very
about?
little, and I think it's good. It's University of Michigan.
Oh, University of Michigan. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So we've got an encampment, and it's like, even if there's some kind of hurtful dialogue, it's pretty peaceful because the cops aren't riling them up, and it kind of seems to be the way to go.
But you know, Bella, this reminds me a little bit, and I used to live right near one of the abortion clinics where there were the murders, and when you walk by those clinics, or when patients were trying to go into those clinics, whether they were there for an abortion or just if they were there for some kind of routine pap test or something like that, you'd have to walk through a phalanx of people waving signs at you with dead fetuses and these huge posters, and they were mostly all men, but they'd be screaming and yelling and saying, "Don't kill your babies," and stuff like that. I mean, it's not exactly analogous, but
weren't there buffer zones to some degree?
There were buffer zones, and that was a debate. Should the buffer zones be 50 feet? Should it be 75 people? But the point is, you had to walk. In most clinics, you had to walk through that. And I think of that now. There was no rush to come in and arrest people there protesting for making all those women, some of whom were going into the building for dentist appointments. There was an orthodontist there too, but they didn't necessarily know that. You know what I mean? They felt uncomfortable.
Bella,
Is
thank
she
you.
there? Oh, no.
Bella, thank you for your call.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. We really appreciate it. 877-301-8970. And by the way, I would argue, and maybe this is so obvious it doesn't bear mentioning, but I'll do it anyway. The Virginia Foxes and the Stefanic's are doing it because they think it accrues to the benefit of their guy, Donald Trump, and will hurt Joe Biden. And by the way, I do think all this is hurting Joe Biden, not only because of what continues to happen in Gaza, but because when there's unrest in the land that makes people feel uncomfortable regardless of who you are, you tend to blame the person in charge, which I don't think is a ridiculous position to take, frankly. 877-301-8097. We have time for one more at least. John in Cranston, hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie. First-time caller, long-time listener. Love your show.
Thank you very much for both.
Yeah, real quick. The protests at the college level, to me, is questionable based on the value. What's the objective of what they're trying to achieve? Obviously, they're protesting because they don't like what's happening, but it would be more productive if they would assign petitions, go through the college administration, lead that to Congress saying, we don't approve of this. And Congress should basically relook and rethink as to how they're releasing funds to Israel if they feel the activity is against humanity. Like, they released, what, $26 billion?
Billion.
So what I'm saying is college students are paying a lot of money for tuition. The protesting, the negative attention, the violence, all the disruption to the people that are trying to conduct their lives in a productive way, to me, it doesn't make sense because the net outcome is all detrimental to the purpose of being in a prestigious college, university.
But John, I would argue, I'm not protesting on the college campus, but from what I read and see, the goals are twofold. On the campuses themselves, it may be divestiture by the university from companies that are supporting the military operation in Gaza. The other impact, which would not be achieved, or no chance of being achieved by a petition, is their goal is to move the government of the United States too. And frankly, I think that this is putting a huge amount of pressure on Joe Biden to put more pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu to, for example, not go into Rafah. So I think that goal, maybe the campus goal could be achieved in a different way. I'm not sure. I don't think the goal of bringing attention to what our government's policy is would be achieved. But John, that was an excellent first call, and we hope to make another one. And thank you for listening. We really appreciate it.
You know, a lot of the texters are pointing out that there are a lot of Jewish kids who are joining in these protests too. There are Jewish kids on both sides of this. And, you know, people refer you to these horrible stories about October 7th. Someone just referred me to a piece by Bret Stephens in the New York Times about this documentary, Screams Before Silence, which is about the violence against women on October 7th. And it's just horrible. And no, I don't think anybody, I would hope. I mean, early on, those really misguided kids at Harvard were supporting Hamas, which was horrible and ridiculous.
Their organization was just banned from the campus.
Yeah, they were just banned from the campus. But when all these people that are texting about they're supporting Hamas, I don't think this is about supporting Hamas. I think
Well,
it's
there's
about,
some on the margins, and they shouldn't be, obviously, they shouldn't be defended or supported. And I mean, there is a high-profile example on the front page of the New York Times. We just talked about it. It's Kaimani James's behavior is intolerable.
From Boston.
From Boston,
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
he, by the way,
Used to be in the school committee here.
and he has apologized for his behavior, but nevertheless, his behavior, at least early on, that he posted on his own Instagram account is unacceptable.
And what he posted is, Zionists don't deserve to live, and be grateful that I'm not going out and murdering Zionists. I don't think there's any question that that is hate speech against Jewish Americans. No question about it.
We're going to talk to, no, we're done. We're going to talk to, we're out of time. We're going to talk to Juliette Kayyem about this too. She'll be with us at noon.
Okay, moving on, we are going to talk, this is Women's Health Month. It's in May. Mother's Day is this month too, so get ready for your gifts for all your mothers. We're going to kick things off with a panel focusing on maternal mental health. That's next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at YouTube youtube.com/GBH News.
Exactly.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Back to the Future, the musical is going 88 miles an hour on Broadway. We talk to the lead actors, Tony nominee Roger Bart, starring as Doc Brown, and actor Casey Likes, who embodies Marty McFly. From there, we ditch the high-speed DeLorean and slow down our pace with a preview of the first ever Joy Walk, an art crawl through Boston. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Innovative plans, coverage, and a broad network of doctors. Mass General Brigham Health Plan, with you every day. For more information, you can visit massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Comcast Business, committed to keeping businesses up and running with Comcast Business Internet, with internet speeds up to 10 gigs available. Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marge Regan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. As I'm sure you know by now, Friday we won't be here. We'll be at UMass Boston for our show. The governor will join us for an hour. The former EPA Administrator Gina McCarthy from Dorchester will join us, as will the newly elevated Chancellor Marcelo Suarez Orozco and others. Next Tuesday, we are back at the library, and we're joined by the mayor. Mayor Wu will join us from 1 to 2. And at 12:30 today, I want to repeat, if you're not here or not watching on YouTube, you're making a big mistake. The 7 players, all 7 of them, from A Strange Loop, Tony Award-winning, Pulitzer Prize-winning play. Actually, formal opening is tonight. They're going to perform and talk to us. It is spectacular, and you should be here to see it. It's May, as Marjorie said, Maternal Health Awareness Month. The first Wednesday of May, that'd be today, is World Maternal Mental Health Day. So we brought together 2 voices on maternal health. We're joined now at the library studio by Jamie Belsito. She's a founder of Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance and a former state rep. It's great to have you. Thanks so much for being here. And on Zoom is Katie Schubert. Katie's the president and CEO of the Society for Women's Health Research. Katie, great to have you as well. Thank you.
So let's start with you, Jamie. Tell us about Maternal Mental Health Day and Month, your group, before you tell us about your story, which was harrowing.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a day for us to really recognize this as the #1 complication of all pregnancy, and not just here in the United States, but worldwide. And so this is an opportunity for us to discuss the elephant in the room and for us to destigmatize something that so many individuals go through in silence and generally feeling like they're alone.
Jamie, you confronted the elephant. That's part of the reason you found. Can you briefly tell us what you lived through?
Sure. I wrangled the elephant, and it continues to be something that we have to wrangle. When I wasn't sure what was happening, I wasn't feeling well, and I went to go try to find support for myself. My baby was amazing and continues to be amazing. She's 14 now, and when I went to find help for me as a mom, it didn't exist. And I married, heterosexual, private insurance, intended pregnancy, all the things, have a house, et cetera, speak English, speak Bostonian, I grew up here, right? So when it came to, if I can't find that support, what does that mean for everybody else? And it really dovetailed into another issue we could have a whole other session on, that's maternal mortality and the senseless deaths of women by suicide the first year postpartum. It's the #1 reason why moms die in this state and in our country.
Well, you went into detail in your piece. You talked about anxiety, depression, OCD, visions of stabbing yourself with sharp objects.
Yes.
I mean, you were really, really struggling. And correct me if I'm wrong, but after you had your second child, you still had some issues with postpartum depression, and it was still hard even after the first experience to get help for the second
It
child?
was the deja vu Groundhog Day that I never wanted to revisit. And I had purposefully gone to a different hospital, changed my provider, felt that if I did all of these things, got a doula, that it would create a different experience for me. And inevitably it didn't.
So Katie Schubert, tell us about the Society for Not Nearly Enough Women's Health Research. Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right. So the Society for Women's Health Research was founded in 1990 on the idea that women were not being included in clinical research, which actually continues to this day, right? We need more awareness, more inclusion, more conversation surrounding this. And today we work on a variety of issues for women's health, including things like endometriosis, maternal health, the inclusion of pregnant and lactating populations in clinical research, which we work very closely with Jamie on as well, all the way through the menopause transition and Alzheimer's disease and bone health. So really across that continuum of care and health for women across their lifespan.
Katie, we have weekly Art Kaplan, who's a medical ethicist at NYU, and I can't tell you how many times we've talked particularly about people of color who've been excluded from research through the ages. So people of color, let's not include them in research. Women, pregnant women in particular, let's not include them. What's the rationale from the leaders who decided those exclusions were appropriate? What have they said through the years?
Well, back in the 1970s, it actually was common practice for women in particular to be actively excluded from clinical research because of fear for their baby if they were to become pregnant, or fear just generally that they would become pregnant during a clinical trial. And that really stems from the thalidomide issue, which came up, in the 1960s, where babies were being born with birth defects because of medication that they were taking. So up through 1993, women in particular, and I would say also on that health equity piece, minoritized populations also were not being included in clinical research until Congress stepped in 1993 to say any NIH-funded research had to include women. And that wasn't that long ago, right? That was just 30 years ago. And so we're really trying to rebuild that. And I will also add, which is also, I think, something that is quite tragic, is that until 2016, again, not that long ago, less than 10 years ago, you didn't need to look at whether there were sex differences amongst animal models. So female mice weren't even being looked at. So we couldn't even get pregnant mice to be looked at in clinical research.
But that's pretty incredible.
Katie, one more thing I wanted to touch on before I get back to Jamie is this whole thing about women's pain being dismissed. Getting an IUD is pretty painful, but a lot of people that put them in don't seem to think that's a big deal when somebody's screaming and stressed out. You talk about a woman, you don't talk about, but this is a Washington Post piece about a woman who had a headache and she kept trying to get a brain scan. And she was a physician, she was a neurologist, and she couldn't get one. Then when she finally got one, they found they had a tennis ball sized tumor in her brain. And many people may have listened to this podcast about the retrievals, the story of women that were getting eggs retrieved from inside their body because they were trying to get IVF. No, I guess, would that be IVF? Mm-hmm. Yeah, IVF. And they were supposed to get anesthesia, but what happened? Are you familiar with the retrievals?
Yeah, I am, and it is harrowing. It's very difficult to listen to, both personally and professionally, I would say. And unfortunately, the story of women's pain in particular, but women's health concerns more broadly being dismissed is all too common. You know, we talk a lot about this term medical gaslighting, which exists, and it's very real. And I think that is hard, for some people to understand. But you just heard this from Jamie as well, right? I mean, there was nowhere for her to go, and even when she could, it was difficult for people to be able to help her. And so we see this across the board in women's health. On the pain side in particular, there is, I think, a perception that women are either being hysterical, and that's literally the historic word that was used, right? Hysteria, or, we're just complaining, or everything's going to be okay. We just need some hydration and we need to go to sleep and then we'll be okay. It's happening all the time. And so I'm excited that there's actually conversation happening about it. This article that you just referenced is really critical because I think it does a good job of explaining that this is very real and it is across the board in women's health. It's not necessarily specific to a particular time in someone's life. The bad thing is that it really puts the burden on the woman and the patient to have to stand up for themselves, right? We have to feel empowered in our care, and that shouldn't be the case. Your clinician should be the one who can say, what is it that's happening? I'm listening to you. I'm going to help you.
I just want to finish the retrievals thing. What was happening is, and this was at Yale, where you think they'd know better, that women after women was screaming on the table saying, this is killing me, this is really hurting me, and they're saying, no, it's okay, this is how it works. Turns out that there was a drug-addicted nurse who was stealing the anesthesia and replacing it with saline solution. So instead of getting anesthetics, they were getting saline solution as they were getting their eggs retrieved.
We're talking to Katie Schubert from the Society for Women's Health Research and Jamie Belsito from Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance. Jamie, what are some of the major issues you are confronting in your organization?
Funding. It's always about funding. It's trying to bifurcate the fact that pregnancy is a separate issue outside of abortion in certain circles. I think that for an issue that's been around since the book, The Yellow Wallpaper, or what used to be called Milk Madness, we're finally seeing some traction since 2016 on this issue.
What does some traction mean?
It means that we were able to take the Massachusetts Child Psychiatry Access for Moms program and replicate that at the federal level with very small monies. We were asking for $5 million to create pilot programs, and they started to work. And they were working in diverse populations as well. Our women of indigenous cultures, black and brown women, and from there we were able to extrapolate that this is now a maternal mortality issue in states that generally didn't engage in that conversation for a whole host of reasons. Started to have to face the fact that we need to take care of women, and we need to do things like expand Medicaid coverage past 60 days, and that we need to take care of the health and wellness of pregnant and new families. Babies don't take care of themselves 60 days after they're born.
Could you also tell us about this hotline, which seems to me to be a terrific thing that exists? Tell us about it, and who's it for?
This is a national hotline. I'm going to sneak over here just to make sure I can, say the number correctly. And I'll also preface by saying I founded the Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance in 2019 because nobody was working on this issue. It's maternal health, it's mental health, it's families, it's babies, and we just needed to keep our eyes on this ball. So we were able to work with Congress in a bipartisan, bicameral way to create the first ever 24/7 national maternal mental health hotline that's available through the phone, which my generation uses, in this newfangled thing called text. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it's 1-833-852-6262. Call or text 1-833-TLC-MAMA. And in speaking with the Secretary of Health and Human Services, we've had over 30,000 plus families reach out to this line, and it connects with local programs on the ground.
That's the voice of Jamie Belsito, founder and Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance, and Katie Schubert is with us as well on Zoom, President and CEO of the Society for Women's Health Research. You know, Jamie, many people will remember a particularly tragic case around here, Lindsay Clancy,
Yes.
a mother of 3 young kids, by all accounts had been a wonderful mother, wonderful husband. The same thing you said, white woman, educated woman, nice house, nice suburban life, and husband leaves to go to get takeout food, and she tragically kills the children. Now, she was being treated, but obviously either it gets to Katie's point where there's not enough knowledge about postpartum depression, or the treatments don't always work, or there's not enough or something, because this happened despite treatment. So what are we to make of that case, which obviously is going to go through the courts at some point?
There's a lot to unpack there, and I actually called for a full hearing on that after leaving the legislature, because we have a postpartum commission in the state. We have screening procedures. We have a MCPAP for moms, the Child Psychiatry Access Program for moms, and we don't have an inpatient unit. McLean, which I understand, the McLean Hospital, which I'm just citing, I believe, is where this mom went for help, was dismissed. Nobody goes in on New Year's Day looking for help after having their 3rd baby just because they need a nap. And so we really need to take a look at, are we listening to women? Are we taking care of them? Are we bringing the partner in on these discussions? Are we creating a bolstered support system around them? Because what happened with Lindsay Clancy, and it's very heartbreaking, is exactly the same sort of story that we saw with Andrea Yates 30 plus years ago. And we look to criminalize
her
these
children
women.
in the bathtub, 5 children.
And this is a severe mental illness, and mental illness should be not criminalized, but sought for support.
So what helped you?
My goodness, what helped me? I think just being able to know it wasn't just me, it is 1 in 5. And that once I knew that, a little bit of that stress lifted off my shoulders. I was very lucky to live near my mother, who gave me a hand. So there's a whole other discussion, right? Who doesn't have support systems? Who doesn't have, someone taking care of them, or even a care coordinator? I always cite the Lynn Community Healthcare system up in Lynn. They have a phenomenal program where if a mom screens positive and doesn't feel well with postpartum, they walk her down to a psychiatrist that's there on campus. They have support systems through peer support. There's a whole host of things that we could be doing, and we're not coordinating care. We aren't giving folks that support that they need. Again, this is a temporary treatable illness that is completely connected to pregnancy.
You know, Katie Schubert, my sense is that one of the things, I don't want to speak for you, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, one of the things that is critical part of the campaigns you're both working on, and people who believe what you do, is public education, to raise awareness big time. Anywhere, I think my numbers are right, anywhere from 3 to 11 states are going to have abortion questions on the ballot come November, obviously as a result of the Dobbs decision. Does that provide a backdrop where a whole spectrum of women's health things can be discussed and debated, or is the laser focus so much on the abortion question that it crowds everything else out?
I think it's both, actually. So there's really 2 issues here, right? The actual issue of access to abortion care, and when we think about that, it's not just, early term elective abortion care. It's very, high risk, very wanted pregnancies that something might go wrong. And we know it's dangerous to give birth in this country. Just look at the maternal mortality rate. So I think that's one piece. I think the secondary piece of this that we are watching and monitoring really closely is, what does this mean for all of those other areas of women's health? So we've seen this already now bleed into fertility and infertility and IVF treatments. We have seen this come into the autoimmune space. So 80% of autoimmune patients are women. If that's not a women's health issue, I don't know what is. Those are often misdiagnosed, long length of diagnosis, sort of, chronic fatigue, joint pain, et cetera, things that you're not quite sure what's going on, but really important. And some of the medications that treat those conditions are also medications that might be used in medication abortion. And so access to those types of medications for other purposes is really critical. So we're watching that. And then the last thing we're watching is related to data collection. In order to do women's health research, in many cases, we need to know, researchers need to know how many pregnancies have you had? What are the outcomes? What are we looking at here? And I think that the environment is such that it's going to be very difficult to get anyone to answer those questions willingly, to be able to get the answers that we need to actually do the research to optimize women's health.
Joining Katie Schubert and Jamie Belsito.
So what should women do that are experiencing, they think, some postpartum issues?
I think, again, going back to that national hotline, it's connecting back to local resources. Yep. We have 28 states right now that have the telepsychiatry access model. And what that means is, Marjorie, if you're my general practitioner or you're my child's pediatrician and you see that I'm not doing well, you don't have to be the one who's going to support me with my mental health. But you can pick up the phone, you can reach out, and you can get someone who's able to support me.
Yeah, tell the anecdote about what when you asked your general practitioner or your gynecologist or obstetrician, whatever it was, for help. What did they tell you to do? They give you a list or something?
They literally gave me, you remember the old days, like the purple thing where you'd put a not a facsimile, I can't even remember.
Mimeograph?
A mimeograph.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim.
Machine.
I think that was during the Civil War they were using.
Yeah, well, they're still in the hospitals, incidentally. And so I swear they might as well just put it in a carrier pigeon and give it to me. But it goes back to what Katie was saying is the onus ends up being on the mom.
Yeah.
And that is unacceptable. My job was to keep a brand new human alive in myself.
How do people find you in your website? Both of you, starting with you, Jamie.
Sure, mmhla.org.
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 How about you, Katie?
We are swhr.org.
swhr.org.
Women's Health Research, WHR.org. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks
I'm so
for the
glad
work
to
you're
talk to you.
doing, both of you.
And
Really appreciate
it's
it.
such important stuff, so thank you both for being here. We've been speaking with Jamie Belsito. She's founder and Maternal Health Mental Leadership Alliance of the Maternal Mental Health Leadership Alliance, and Katie Schubert, President and CEO of the Society for Women's Health Research. Thank you both again.
Wait 1 second. Zoe wants to thank Jamie for being the town moderator of her hometown, Topsfield. So
my
from our
goodness.
colleague in Topsfield, there you are.
You're a glutton for punishment there. That's
well, she
not
left
easy.
the legislature. She's not that much of a glutton. Good to see you
Thank
both.
you both for being here today. Coming up after the new news, we're going to talk with our national security expert, Juliette Kayyem. We're going to talk more about these campus protests, calling on the cops to dismantle those protests, what's going on in the Trump trial, and a bunch of other stuff. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public.
Just ahead, more smart conversation about what's going on in our community. That's right after an NPR news break, here on GBH News 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the Office of the Massachusetts State Treasurer. The Unclaimed Property Division is holding unclaimed funds from medical bills, uncashed paychecks, savings accounts, and more. To see if you have unclaimed money, you can visit findmassmoney.gov. Ever wonder what the future will look like? Ari Wallach goes on a journey to find out how we can build a more sustainable future for each generation. Watch A Brief History of the Future tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Trusted, local, news. You're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you.
I'm Jim Brady, head on Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, beginning our noon hour with national security expert Harvard's Juliette Kayyem on mass arrests and protests on some college campuses around the country, and on the other hand, some places where deals are being cut between administrators and students. Dr. Kai Clifton.
I'm Marjorie Egan. We'll get reaction to the Trump election interference trial from Ron Mitchell of the Bay State Banner. We'll also ask him about the Banner's latest reporting on admissions bias in local Voc schools. Then it's Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung on Boston's Asian Restaurant Week. Can't wait for that. Then we'll open up the text and phone lines to ask you what sounds send you over the edge. All that ahead, Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Nora Rahm. New York police arrested about 300 people at Columbia University and the City College of New York last night. Police had moved in on pro-Palestinian protesters. New York City Mayor Eric Adams praised their restraint as they carried out the arrests.
If you were at City College and you saw the bottles, the garbage cans, the other items that were thrown at police officers, those police officers showed a great level of discipline to not allow this to evolve to an out-of-control situation.
This morning, about a dozen people were arrested at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, where pro-Palestinian demonstrators had erected tents. Nationwide, more than 1,000 protesters have been arrested. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is in Israel today, urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other leaders to fast-track additional aid into Gaza. NPR's Lauren Frayer reports Blinken is also trying to negotiate a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas.
Thank you, Blinken! Thank you, Blinken! Thank you!
Dozens of Israelis gathered outside Secretary of State Blinken's hotel, chanting thanks for his support for a ceasefire proposal that could see some hostages freed from Hamas militants in Gaza. Some Palestinian prisoners in Israel would also be released. Blinken blames any delays on Hamas. Meanwhile, Israeli airstrikes continue in Rafah, the southern Gaza city where more than 1 million Palestinians have sought refuge. Netanyahu has vowed to mount a ground offensive there, something Blinken is trying to discourage and something the UN Secretary General has said would be a, quote, unbearable escalation. Lauren Frayer, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The criminal trial of Donald Trump in New York doesn't resume until tomorrow, so the former president is using today to campaign to get the job back. He scheduled rallies in Wisconsin and Michigan, 2 states that may help determine the outcome of the November election. 6 months before the vote, a new NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll finds divergent views on what concerns Americans the most about the future of the country. NPR's Domenica Montanaro reports.
Fear of a rise in fascism and extremism topped the list of concerns for the almost 1,200 respondents in the survey, but that was mostly driven by Democrats. Nearly half of Democrats picked it as their top choice. Nothing else came close. For Republicans, it was a lack of values and becoming weak as a nation. People also have very different beliefs in what values to impart to their children. Democrats say teach them to treat others as they would want to be treated, that education is the key to success, and be happy and follow your dreams. Republicans say it's most important that kids are taught to have faith in God and that hard work and discipline pay off. Domenico Montanaro, NPR News, Washington.
Checking stocks, the Dow is now up 97 points. This is NPR News in Washington.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. Final exams at Harvard University have been moved outside of Harvard Hall to buildings outside of Harvard Yard. The move is due to the ongoing Palestine encampment, now in its 7th day. On Monday, more than 30 student protesters were called to appear before the administrative board, which oversees the enforcement policies at the school. The Crimson reports that other events scheduled to be held in University Hall were also moved to locations outside of the yard. It's unclear how many more days the encampment will continue. And a 70-year-old doctor from Ashland pleaded guilty yesterday to multiple federal charges related to the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol building in Washington, D.C. Globe reports that charges against Dr. Jacqueline Starr included resisting or impeding police officers. She was arrested nearly 2 years ago after the insurrection, after investigators tracked her down by way of video footage that appears to show her striking a cop in the face. Starr could face multiple years in prison when she's sentenced this coming fall. And Pats fans, set your times. Tickets go on sale tomorrow for those looking to attend Tom Brady's Patriots Hall of Fame induction ceremony this June. Team says you can purchase them for $100 each through Ticketmaster starting at noon tomorrow, Thursday. Celtics and the Heat go at it at the Garden tonight in the playoffs, and the Red Sox have more shutouts than any other Major League team this season. They've got 6, and they host the Giants at Fenway tonight. This is GBH News.
Stations. Other contributors include Mathnasium, who believes that every kid can be a math kid. Mathnasium offers customized math instruction intended to challenge advanced kids and help struggling kids get better. Learn more at mathnasium.com.
Eastern Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Thank you. 89.7 GBH. We are streaming live at the Boston Public Library. We're at the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. And on Friday, we're not going to be here because we're going to be at UMass Boston in Dorchester for a special show. The governor's going to be with us. Gina McCarthy used to run the EPA for Obama's going to be with us. Paul English, philanthropist and kayak starter, is going to be with us. And Marcelo Suarez Orozco, who is a chancellor at UMass. You can just stop on by and see that gorgeous campus. That's from 11 to 2 on Friday. Hello again, Jim.
You know, we just don't have the director and the lead from a Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning show at 12:30 talking and performing. We have the whole cast, all 7 members of the cast of A Strange Loop, which Margie and I saw Sunday. The formal opening is tonight. You really don't want to miss this. Either get on down here quickly or make sure
Wait,
you're
that's
on.
right after me?
That is correct.
That's right after you.
Right
YouTube,
after?
So talk fast.
I'm the opening act. It's a girl's dream come true.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Speaking of them, we're joined now at the BPL squeezed between her CNN appearances, Juliette Kayyem. Juliette's former Assistant Secretary for Homeland Security under Barack Obama, faculty chair of the Homeland Security Program at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government, who has a new boss, by the way. Her latest book is The Devil Never Sleeps, Learning to Live in an Age of Disasters. Hello, Juliette.
Hello
Hi.
everyone. Thank you for coming out.
So,
to the
Juliette,
opening act.
we were talking to our listeners early on about what they make of the college campuses and what these arrests mean for the future of protests on campus. God, I've got hundreds and hundreds of emails here on this subject. People are very passionate about it. Excuse me.
Thank you.
But how do you feel as though these protests are being handled? The cops were in at Columbia last night. Brown has reached an agreement with your students down there.
We're now starting to see some alternatives. So, and you know, I am working with a lot of colleges and universities. I have college-age kids. My youngest is going to Columbia, so I have a lot of skin in the game. So I don't think it's a single narrative. I think things have changed in the last 2 weeks, and I think for good. And then we'll get to the bad part. But the first thing is to remind people that lots of colleges and universities are doing this well. They either have protests that are manageable, that they are allowing students. I've been saying this for the last 2 weeks with you. You have to allow students to have outlets and access. I mean, these are colleges and universities. These are young people who are animated by current events and by what they see as an important reason to protest. So that's the first thing you then saw is that there's lots of good case studies, and what we're learning from them, or what you can see from them, is that law enforcement is last. And I think early on you saw law enforcement go in, whether it was Texas or Columbia or elsewhere, with sort of no, the ratchet just swung, right? Like it was like all of a sudden there's protests and then there's armed police officer, not even community relations people, not even de-escalation people, and you saw a lot of bad things happen. Then the entire nation erupts, right? What went from a localized thing, this is the entire nation. I think what you're starting to see is a couple things. One is most protests are now going as they should. The illegal trespasses, and these are now the cases that we're seeing, whether it's Columbia or elsewhere, are being dealt with in a sort of escalating manner. So there was lots of opportunities for those students to get off board. Most of them ought not to be arrested. Most of them were just there to protest, and then arrest those who had criminal conduct. But let's not get to that point. I mean, this is the thing I keep saying is like, in early April, I just tweeted out, I was just looking at it, I just tweeted out like, okay, nothing should come as a surprise about how all of this is going to unfold, is that we're going to see lots of activity, especially as we head towards graduation. This is I'm a professor at a university, this is the dead time. My students are done with classes. They have an exam here or there until graduation. And we know that there's lots of energy on campus. In terms of what's happening at UCLA overnight, one of the reasons why you
What's happening at the overnight?
So overnight there were attacks on the protesters. The people claimed that they were, representing Jewish interests, but I don't trust anything anymore until we get verification. But one of the things, and you'll see a lot of it online, and CNN did reporting on it. One of the things that I cannot believe is the sort of lack of basic safety and security measures, not even exceptional ones, like access control, like protecting students, right? I mean, this is 101. So that's
I mean,
sort of
making
where I
them
see
show
it
an
is.
ID
Yeah.
before they get onto campus, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're also caught up in like either catering to some constituency or
rich donors and Republicans in the House of Representatives.
and feeding into it. I mean, that is the absolute truth, that we're sort of losing our heads in this. And what I want to say is, like, I think what to your point about donors, I think what university presidents are realizing is that they have other constituencies, and those can be loud. You lose your faculty, you're in big trouble. Your other administrators, if you lose your deans, then you're in big trouble. I mean, the role of a university president is that you don't have a lot of authority over these other pieces, right? You certainly don't have over faculty. You have some authority over students, but it's more limited. There's other administrators who are going to have opinions, and best to not assume that your loudest donors or the loudest constituency group is actually telling the narrative of what's going on. There's this whole idea right now of these outside agitators. The mayor of New York just ended a press conference on it. I don't doubt outside agitators. Depends on what you define as outside. But yes, there are non-students that are being captured in this.
It's been going on for like hundreds of years.
Also, do you know how old you sound if you call the protesters like outside agitators? And I was like, literally, can we just?
That's me.
That's like,
I've been calling them outside agitators.
What do you don't think that?
I heard that from the Graduate.
I mean, this
Dustin
idea
Hoffman
that these
movie.
students don't have an interest in what's going on in the world, that they're not outraged at what is happening in Gaza,
or that they don't know, that they're ignorant. That drives me crazy.
Right. I mean, it's like
I don't think they're ignorant at Columbia and Harvard.
It is outrageous, and we are losing our ability to de-escalate if we just think like, oh, it's just a bunch of outsiders. There's a real movement going on. You may agree or disagree with it, but it's real, and there are outside influences on it. But it's not like, these kids are like, playing their video games, and then all of a sudden someone comes in and says,
we get that all the time.
Juliette,
they don't know the history. They don't know the history. They don't know the history. I
There's
think they know it
a woman on
by
the
now.
Trump jury that doesn't even know there are other cases pending.
Yeah,
and
but
she's
Jim,
an adult.
I'm going to sound, maybe this is unfair, but I think generally speaking, if you have the brains to get into Columbia or Harvard, you might be a little bit more aware of what's going on.
But whether they are not, they're entitled to protest.
Yes, and
everyone
is talking about these elite schools because we're like an easy out. But it's happening in Indiana, and it's happening in Georgia, and
Juliette,
it's happening
you
in
do
Texas.
a lot of consulting.
It's the constant criticism that they don't know anything that annoys me, because I think they know plenty.
So the president of Northeastern and the president of Emerson calls you on the phone as a consultant, in theory.
That's so funny.
And says, should we call the cops to arrest our students? What would you have told them? Both of them did.
Given what I saw at the moment that they called in both instances, no.
Yeah, and that's.
But they're not being guided. I don't think they're being guided by good security advice. I think they're being guided by other advice. I mean, I don't know a single security specialist, and who would have said that.
It says arrest first. Yeah.
I mean, it's like we became unused to protest, and protest is annoying if you don't agree with it, or two, if you agree with it, but you're just trying to get from point A to point B. But it's allowed, and especially with time and place restrictions. What I saw was not disruptive at the moment. You try to come up with alternatives, you try to de-escalate, but bringing in a bunch of cops to arrest a bunch of students, I don't even have to predict for you. We know what the recipe is. We know what happens. Yeah. It never ends well.
I think more of us should be protesting. We should be down in front of Congress protesting our lousy health care and a lot of other
one
things.
Dead student. I mean, thank God. I mean, these interactions between these heavily armed law enforcement and students hasn't resulted in a mistake. I mean, that's what happens.
And what was interesting too, going back to our history here, when a lot of the parents of the protesters started coming out to the streets in the Vietnam, where it became middle-class moms and dads, particularly mothers and dads who lost sons in Vietnam.
Or didn't want to lose a son.
Yeah, that changed the tenor. We weren't, it was easy to arrest all those so-called long hairs, but we weren't so big on arresting the 55-year-olds that were protesting
and also
on behalf of their children.
This idea that these students don't know history, they actually do, But the one thing is they are watching things that we're not watching. They are watching international television. They are seeing the streaming of videos of what's happening in Gaza. They know that there's no universities left. They know, and the idea that they're not smart enough to process
drives me nuts.
What I say, in my intellectual way is, well, that doesn't really look like a counterterrorism campaign. It looks like something different. Like, they're seeing it and they're calling it for what it is. They know the history, and the history doesn't justify, in my opinion, the kind of Israeli response in Gaza.
In any case, we were talking to, that whole argument, I don't want to belay it. This really bothers me, that with all due respect to both of you, defending the brains of these students, there's not a threshold. There's nothing in this society where you have to take an IQ test to be a member of Congress, to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States.
With due respect, you're missing the point.
What is the point?
The point is, if you were sitting here with these hundreds of text messages in front of you, you would see that this is a recurring theme.
Right, and if it turns out,
know.
And do you think they'd come up with another argument if that argument was cut away?
This is an argument
it's a convenient argument.
Right, and I think we can debunk it here on Boston Public Radio.
But the old people that are texting you, I'm sorry to put it that way, but we are deluding ourselves if we think that the movement for Palestinian self-determination is either from outside forces or anti-Semitic or doesn't have a justness to it, or is and we will all be better off listening to it. Honestly.
Right, but at the same time, I want to temper what you say. There is some anti-Semitism.
Of course.
On the margins, of course there is, and it's got to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Can we go to this trial that isn't even happening in the minds of most people in America? I want to read what Judge I know I'm a one-trick pony, sorry, Marjorie. Here's what the judge said, Merchant, in the Trump trial when he said no cameras. The interests of the news media, I would say the interests of the public, must be weighed against competing interests such as the safety of the defendant, who has Secret Service protection, and potential interference with the dignity and decorum of the court, whatever that means. 48 states allow cameras. Yeah. And I would say the level of discussion of this trial, if you're not watching CNN or MSNBC, is virtually non-existent. That's one. And two, I'm sorry, I'm going to calm down after this, the stupidity of most reporters who, when they speak about this trial, say this is a trial about Donald Trump paying hush money to a porn star and falsifying business records, and they stop because the end of the sentence is in an attempt to affect the outcome of an election.
Right.
I mean, and by the way, maybe if the cameras were in the courtroom and we could hear somebody other than Donald Trump walking in and walking out, we might actually know what the damn trial's about.
That's exactly. But this is a, you say catch and kill. For what purpose, right? That purpose was to promote Trump, to isolate any criticism from him, and to denigrate his primary challengers, including, I guess, the main focus was Ted Cruz at the time. So that's exactly right, that this is an election case. It's just different than the ones that that we're looking at, or the January 6th ones that we're looking at. But it is clearly was Michael Cohen has testified and has said this was done solely for the purpose of getting him the Republican nomination.
Well, David Pecker, his buddy, his first witness, is saying pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
And, well, it is the best name. But last time I'll say this, I promise today. Do you think the reaction to what Pecker had to say would be different if people saw it on their television screen?
Judge Merchant made a big mistake.
Big mistake.
He absolutely should have opened the courtroom.
Also, the public interest is so great. We're forgetting that. I guess it was yesterday. I think I'm quoting Jeff Toobin in this, that it was the first time that he was basically criminally indicted.
He is a criminal.
He's a criminal because of the violations. I mean, that's like a big deal. Like, we're sort of not processing it because we already think that he has, that he's been criminally indicted 142 times. Yeah. But I forget.
If you stop 10 people in the street right now, do you think they'd know more about the Karen Reed case, which is being televised?
Yeah.
Or the Donald Trump case,
it'd be Karen
which is
Reed.
not Karen Reed?
Yeah.
So may I move on?
That's right.
May I move on from
you
the
want to
trial?
talk puppy murders?
May.
We'll be getting to the puppy murders in just a second. But we all heard what Trump's plans are from his advisors. Should he win the presidency again, he's going to deport 11 million people, build these micro detention camps. He's going fire any U.S. attorney who doesn't carry out his orders to prosecute his enemies.
Did he mean fire like terminate or actually kill? Because that was totally possible given the interview.
Could be either one. That's right. As Ketanji Brown Jackson talked about in the Supreme Court case. If you have a president who can do whatever he wants, we can turn the Oval Office into a crime zone, and that's what may be happening. But anyway, I didn't know about this one, that he would let red states monitor women's pregnancies and prosecute those women who violate abortion bans.
Yes. Well, no, his line was really weird because it's not weird in the sense, but his line was, well, there's nothing I can do about it. There's absolutely something that you could do about it, right? It's like he takes all the powers of the presidency to become an autocrat, except for on this one issue where he doesn't want to lose the fundamentalist vote. And he's like, oh, I have no control over this.
What does it mean to monitor a pregnancy? I'm not sure what that means.
It would mean
you check in every month.
No, I think what it means is if, say, you're in Florida as of today because they have the 6-week ban. You buy a pregnancy test in week 7, and then you're monitored driving to Virginia. I don't know where the.
By the way, and Matt Gaetz does all the monitoring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That it would be that your intent to leave the state, interstate travel, was for unlawful purposes or to, according to the state. It's whatever, and what. I don't want to say it cracks me up. It cracks me up in the morbid way that I tend to get cracked up, which is the idea that this court, the Supreme Court, in terminating Roe v. Wade, thought that they were going to get out of this issue because they thought everyone would act responsibly now and the states would have, exceptions and whatever, is crazy. They are going to be having Dobbs cases until the end of time.
Why do you think they thought there were going to be peaceful outcomes?
I think they live in a world in which they have grown. They've been educated legally to believe that Roe v. Wade is not only bad policy, because a lot of them are Catholics, but also bad law. They've sort of constructed this idea that there's really no constitutional right for it, and that and they can smart people can convince themselves that their bad idea is good because they're going to have an intellectual reason for it, like the case law wasn't right at the time, so they overrule Roe v. Wade, thinking, at least I think the more recent conservative Supreme Court justices thinking that, rational Republicans now will just be rational about this. Well, the truth is what the only thing that motivated the abolition of Roe v. Wade was not abortion, it was control over women's reproductive freedom. And so the idea that we're talking about Heritage 2025. We are talking about birth control. And I'm like, I know everyone's like, oh, yeah, you have a daughter, you must be concerned. Honestly, I have sons. Like, it's equally important to them. Like, I don't want them,
I just realized, as you two were talking about the oral argument, wasn't your husband mentioned in the oral argument by somebody? I'm not allowed to say that?
Yeah, he was.
I'm not asking what his position is, but your husband was mentioned.
You're right. Okay, I can say this because it's a matter of record.
Yes.
I'm very...
he's an appellate court federal judge,
He's the chief judge of the First Circuit. He was mentioned in the Trump case. His an opinion that Amy Coney Barrett argued was written by him. It's
the Office of Legal Counsel.
Yeah, when he was at the Office of Legal Counsel, but it's her representation of who wrote it.
You know what else I think?
You do shots when his name is mentioned in a Supreme Court oral argument. You do that in the House?
So you all know this story that he is not on social media. He hates publicity. He hates the fact I'm talking about this makes him ill to his stomach. He's not, but the good thing is he's not listening.
Great.
And
that's not so good.
And so something like this, where everyone's pinging him saying, "Did you just hear that Amy Coney Barrett mentioned you on the court?" is not something. He went viral once, but it was such a great opinion, and that was the one where, for want of a comma. Where he defended the Oxford comma, which made every journalist very happy.
Okay, moving on from the Oxford comma, let's get to the
puppy murderer.
The question is whether Kristi Noem has eliminated herself.
Yes.
She, of course, is the governor. I always forget if she's South Dakota, which Dakota it is, South Dakota. Is she out now of the vice presidential sweepstakes because everybody loves dogs? And particularly puppies, and she shot one to death at 14 months.
Donald Trump doesn't love dogs. Wasn't he the first president, 100 years not to have a pet?
That says it all.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So I want to just talk about like not the election part of this, but the
dog murder,
the violence and the glorification of a certain kind of violence. She shot him. I mean, that is part of the culture, which they think is sort of a sign of strength, right? So her miscalculation, because I do think it was a miscalculation, is that somehow being tough on the cruelty is the point, right? The most defenseless entities in the world, in this case a puppy, is somehow makes her seem like tough girl. Like, and just look at her persona. I mean, she's always, God bless her. I mean, she's had 3 kids. She looks great, but she's always in the sort of like the tough girl outfits, and I'm, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, come on, it's a whole. She had her teeth fixed.
She got in trouble here.
She
got
has
money
a whole
for getting her teeth
image
fixed, I
of
think.
sort of I'm the female Trump, right? I'm the daughter he never had, so to speak. And so the idea of how many people miscalculated this for her is remarkable.
She put it in her own book, by the way. She was not outed. She wrote about this.
Yeah.
It's
and she
unbelievable.
shot a
But
goat.
I think that just shows like the cocoon that these people are in, that they're totally convinced both that the sort of violence is desirable and that goading the left or the woke, right, is going to automatically come to their is going to automatically benefit them. I mean, you could just imagine her writing and be like, "Oh, all those lefties are going to be so upset." It's like it's not really lefties; it's like normal people who don't
Did you see her last night on television wrestling a baby seal to the ground, strangled it?
Was it great?
Strangled it to death. People were cheering.
Maybe we should put her with the protesters.
Eric
It'd
Trump
be like,
was
this
in
is
heaven.
a de-escalation we've
By
been
the way,
looking for.
we only have a minute left. You know what's interesting? Someone actually, I know you're the opening act
I'm
for
the
people who are
opening
really
act.
talented. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Hello, I'm
You know
the
that
opening
Eric
act.
Trump actually showed up?
He showed up.
At the damn trial.
Yeah.
First family member.
What do you think the
who
over-under-
deigned to show up with this guy.
What do you think
Not
the
the
over-under
wife.
is? Melania.
She's already changed the locks at Mar-a-Lago, let me tell you.
Yeah, but he's got an important high school graduation to go to.
That's right. He got the day off for that.
He's gonna
Well,
make.
by the way, he should get the day off to go to his son's
Poor
graduation.
Barron. Imagine Barron. Imagine being Barron Trump.
Maybe he's
and you
a
can't hide because you're like
sympathizer.
6'7".
Okay, Juliette, you're the best opening act we have ever had.
Thank you.
I want you to know
Thank
you're
you.
an excellent opening act. Thank you.
Look, I feel like I should have a lighter. Thank you, everyone.
Juliette will be on CNN at we'll watch it at
1:28.
1:30.
So my
Watch it
car.
at 2 o'clock.
Peter at
Goodbye.
the Lennox Hotel. Much to thank him. He has my car waiting for me right there.
All
He
right,
is
good to see you.
fabulous. Bye,
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Kayyem.
We've been speaking with Juliette Kayyem, former Assistant Secretary of Homeland Security for Barack Obama, Faculty Chair of Homeland Security at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Up next, A Strange Loop makes its Boston debut. This is a Pulitzer Prize winner, Tony Award winner. We're going to talk with the director and lead actor and hear some great music up next.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, national advocates, some of them celebrities, are speaking out against the expansion of private jet service at Hanscom Airfield, saying it could harm historic sites. Patients at local hospitals are dealing with long waits for mammograms. And North End restaurants are protesting the neighborhood's exclusion when it comes to outdoor dining. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Direct Tire and Auto Service, committed to transparency in the auto repair business. Their team will text videos on the vehicle inspection process to help you understand the work they are considering. DirectTire.com. And Somerville Open Studios, celebrating their 25th year this weekend, noon to 6, with over 350 artists at 99 locations citywide opening their studios to the public. Map, artist, and trolley info at somervilleopenstudios.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marge Regan. We're live at the library. And by the way, if you're not streaming at youtube.com/GBH News, you're making a big mistake. I do it quickly. Friday, we are not at the library. We're UMass Boston. The governor will join us for an hour. The former administrator of the EPA, Gina McCarthy. the newly installed Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, a whole bunch of people. And then next Tuesday, we're back at the library. Mayor Wu will be with us for an hour. Because we're not going to be live at the library on Friday, we're going to be live from UMass Boston. We're bringing you live music a couple of days early. This will be Wednesday. A Strange Loop, as Marjorie said, is the Pulitzer Prize and Tony Award-winning musical that's making its Boston debut, co-produced by the Front Porch Arts Collective and SpeakEasy Stage. Formal opening night is tonight. Marjorie and I saw it on Sunday, and to say that it was the shortest measurable unit of time from when the curtain didn't really go down, the end of the play until the audience exploded to its feet, is an understatement. The story centers, well, actually, I'll let the director and the lead say what the story centers on. In a moment, we're going to speak with the show's director, who also a co-founder of the Front Porch Arts Collective. That is Maurice Parent. It's great to see you again, Maurice. Thanks so much for being here. And lead actor, also a local person, Kai Clifton. First, we're going to hear, though, Kai, and actually the whole cast, everybody's here, right? The whole deal. This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
The Thoughts performing intermission song. Welcome to you all.
Can I really write this?
How many minutes till the end of intermission?
Is that how the show should open?
Should there even be a show?
No, he should start with what he's thinking,
which is just a cursor blinking because of all of the directions that the narrative can go.
He wants to show what it's like to live up here and travel the world in a fat black queer body.
How many minutes till the end of intermission? No one cares about a writer who is struggling to write.
They'll say it's way too repetitious,
it's so overly ambitious, which of course makes him suspicious that you think you're effing white.
He has to fight for his right to live in a world that chews up and spits out black queers on the daily.
Blackness, queerness, fighting back to fill this cis and all white space
with a portrait of a black queer face
and a choir full of black queer voices, treble, clef,
and also bass
that are casting spells to conjure up a
big black and queer ass American Broadway.
Big black and queer ass American Broadway.
Big black and queer ass American Broadway show. Of intermission till he has to face the fact that he is really in a jam.
He has no patrons he can call on, nor a backup plan to fall on.
Just a hamster wheel to crawl on.
Nobody gives a damn.
He tries to scramble and dodge and extricate. Still his fate lies in wait like a scavenging vulture. All he wants is to subvert expectations, black and white, from the left and the right, for the good of the culture.
Usher, 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 usher. How many minutes till the end of intermission? You're a ball of black confusion that keeps hitting a plateau.
You can't just flout every convention.
But the man completed tension in a
big black and queer ass American Broadway show.
How many minutes till the end of intermission?
Some say right from expiration, some say just write what you know. But either way you keep careening, so it's hard to find the meaning in your
big black and queer ass American Broadway show.
How many minutes till the end of intermission? If you can't please the Caucasians, you will never get the dough.
Plus critics clinically deny us, then deny implicit bias.
With their vanity supported by a system that's distorted.
Watch them write you off as lazy, not to mention navel gazing.
Lacking both in craft and rigor,
cause you're just an effing
big black and queer ass
American Broadway.
Big black and queer ass American Broadway.
Big black and queer ass American Broadway. Usher, 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 usher,
oh my God, 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 oh my God. Less than 2.
Clifton is going to join us That was fabulous, all of you. Thank you so much. And Maurice Parent, who is the director of this terrific production, is joining us as well. Welcome to you both.
So, Kai, we're going to start with you since you're the local guy here. And I'm glad that you're not your character Usher. I'm glad you're not Michael R. Jackson, because I felt so bad for you. Even your mother and father are not on your side. But give people the synopsis, what this is about, and who the thoughts are. Tell the story.
Yes, so A Strange Loop is about a black gay man who's writing a musical, about a black gay man who's writing a musical about a black gay man, etc. But within that, it's really about a character who is trying to write this play, this self-referential story that parallels his life, but he realizes that he can't do that effectively until he confronts a lot of the issues that he has in his own life in order to write that in the script.
Does this parrot your life in any ways there, Kai?
Yes, a little bit. I think Usher's so relatable because he's a young artist. He feels like he has something very important to say to the world, and I feel like every young artist feels that way. There's obviously a lot of things I don't relate to when it comes to him, but I could definitely understand wanting to make meaningful art and wanting to tell a story that's rare and that deserves to be told.
You know, Maurice, one of the problems with this play, I gotta tell you, is when you leave a great musical, you want to be singing all the songs. You can't sing all the songs in all places. Is that a fair?
Well, you can't sing them out loud where other people can hear you.
That's what I meant to say.
You may have to substitute a few words.
Yeah. Why does this have such appeal to you? Obviously, this Jackson thing, it won virtually everything.
Mm-hmm.
Why were you attracted to this?
For many reasons. One of them is the writer, Michael R. Jackson, is quoted as saying that it's not an autobiographical piece, but it's an emotional autobiographical piece, where like some of the things he may have not directly experienced, but he felt at various points in his life. And I think when we talk about the emotional truths of various communities, of various people that are interconnected in different ways, you get almost more of like a global experience, because we all know what it is to feel not comfortable in your skin. We all know what it is like to feel unwelcome or unsafe or unloved, not loved unconditionally. So I think that's what really drew me to as a black queer artist myself. I was able to relate to a lot of those emotional truths that the play really talked about in very bold, unapologetic ways.
Well, you know what I also thought was really clever is the way it was staged. So there you are, Usher, and then there's your thoughts up, above you and around you, talking to you, sometimes really meanly, when you were trying to put together your play. Talk about how that looks in the theater.
In rehearsals, it was very different doing it with the actual set. But it's so interesting because the way it's staged beautifully, but the way that
You say that when he's not standing next to you?
Yes, I do.
It is.
It's staged beautifully, and it helps me so much as an actor because the thoughts kind of just pop up like actual thoughts, and they're from different levels of the set, and it really does work because I'm kind of just like, oh, wait, these are all coming from random and different places, but that's how your actual thoughts work in your mind.
Did you see this on Broadway? Did you both see it on Broadway?
Yeah.
You did, yeah. How hard is it when you see something that is so wildly well received, put together in a certain way, to break that mold when you bring it to town? Do you
That's
know what
a great
I mean?
question. Like I still feel new to directing. I'm primarily an actor. Y'all see me.
Yes, we have.
So as a director, I really have to feel inspired by the piece. I feel as an actor, you can do anything. Give me a script and give me a spotlight, I'm good. But like as a director, I really need to be inspired. So I saw this on Broadway, and it came up that we might be co-producing with SpeakEasy Stage. And I went to a bunch of directing mentors of mine. One is Loretta Greco, and I said, this thing was so beautiful on Broadway. I'm so intimidated. She goes, why are you worried? It is not possible for us to recreate the Broadway. We don't have the budget. We don't have the same trappings. It's a different location, it's a different audience. So embrace the things that you were inspired by in the Broadway, honor those, but then also think like, how would you say it with your own voice, with your own cast, in front of the audiences that you know. So that was kind of a really nice shaping as I started months ago preparing for it.
I wonder if they did it the same way. I guess, I don't know if Hollywood Squares, you know the way they do Hollywood Squares on TV where all the people are sitting in each square. I mean, was that the way they did it on Broadway too?
It was different. I think all the squares were in a line.
They were in a line,
and I think they were
because you had high squares, middle squares, low squares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I wanted it to, not to bring up this, but I wanted to feel like, the Harry Potter room of requirement. Any Harry Potter nerds out there? Where like as soon as you need something, it appears.
That's pretty good.
So I think that's how the mind is. As soon as you think of something or as soon as you see something on the street that reminds you of something, it pops right in. It doesn't take time.
Who's going to introduce your fellow players? And we're particularly in love with a guy at the piano because he told us this morning, David did, that he's listened to our show from our old days on another radio station.
Yeah.
So who's going to introduce all these fine souls? Who wants to do that?
I'll do it.
Go ahead, Maurice.
Music director David Coleman.
Well, let's hear it for David.
Playing Thought 1, we have our wonderful Grant Evan. Thought 2 is local artist Davron Monroe. Thought 3, Jonathan Mello. Thought 4, Aaron Michael Ray. Thought 5 is Zion Militan. Oh. Thought 6, Zion Militan. I swear I read this play at some point in my life. Thought 5 is DeLon Grant.
Right.
You know what's unbelievable? They all look so humble when you introduce them. They're such huge personalities on this stage. Tell us that you're the Boston person. You rose from a local.
Yes,
Tell
I
us your
did.
path to this lead in this wonderful production.
Yeah, so I'm from Dorchester, born
Yes.
and raised. And my path to the show, I saw an Instagram video of a clip of Memory Song, which is like the 11 o'clock number in the show. And I was like, oh, it was so beautiful. I was so fascinated by it. And I was like, I have to see this show. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know anything about it going into it. And I remember seeing it and leaving the theater like sobbing and like just feeling so represented, because I never thought I'd see a show where someone who looked like me, who was plus size, who was black, who was queer, leading this show that was about being plus size, black, and queer. And I was just like, I have to get my hands on this. And then it was happening in Boston.
Did you see yourself as Usher when?
Of course I did. Yeah.
I don't mean I meant see yourself playing Usher is what I meant to say.
Oh, absolutely. I saw the show and I was like, I have to play this part. Not only like is like the text so good and juicy, but like the music, it fit my range so well, which is also another thing. Like actors who, they don't typically write roles for people that look like me, that have the vocal requirements or the vocal abilities that I do. So that was also really beautiful.
Kai, did you start acting in high school?
No, I started acting when I was 8.
Oh, okay. The reason I asked, because the Boston Arts Academy is alive. I just wondered, that's not where you went to high school, is
That
it?
is where I went to high school.
It is where you went to high school, okay. Because they do a lot of great stuff. Boston Public Schools, you hear a lot of bad things about the Boston Public Schools. That's a great Boston Public School.
Yes.
It does a lot of great stuff. So
You
I
know,
want to know
Maurice-
about I want to know about the sex stuff. because this was an R-rated production. And so how do you deal with that? Do you say you got to be 14 or 18 or whatever it is? I mean...
Yeah. By the way, an old woman sitting behind us expired during the. It's a very sad moment, but it is what it happens. You lose somebody, you gain somebody else. Go ahead, Maurice.
She was a plant. She was a plant. That's my neighbor.
I'm sorry.
So that's a great question. So number one, we have to have all the content warnings and all the prefaces. Yeah, on the website.
Oh,
I believe
didn't know
there's
that.
these are some of the themes we'll explore in the piece, and also this is the age suggestion.
Yep.
But there's some people that have their 12-year-olds seeing things that I couldn't even handle. So we like to let people make their own choices, but put all the information out there in transparency. Then when we got into the process of making the play, there's an intimacy director/choreographer who comes in, and before he even stages the sex stuff, he has is a he in this situation. His name is Greg Giffard. He came and had conversation with all of us about just what our comfort levels and and I'll say ours like I'm on stage, but I'm not. Their comfort levels are what matters, like where they like to be touched, and then built it organically. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit more about that process, but that's how we structured it. Make sure that it's done with a trained intimacy professional that that takes us through that process.
What was that like, Kai, as a player?
It was coming into it. I was initially a little scared of it, but Greg, our intimacy director, was phenomenal, and also like this cast is amazing. I love them; they're my family, and we really held each other together.
Most of them are smiling when you say that. Not all of them.
They
5
know.
or 6
They
were
know.
smiling. Okay.
But we really hold each other together, and doing it is, I mean, it's never comfortable, but it's sustainable.
I
and it
love the
feels
look on your
doable.
face when you're describing this play. It's great. It's really, it's so.
Well, they do this
It's
in
so
the
full
movies.
of emotion.
I've heard about
It's
this
great.
in the movies too.
Oh,
where you
yeah, of
have to have
course.
real agreements on who's going to
You
do
know-
what, where, and when, and all that kind
And I
of
love
stuff.
what Kai said about it being uncomfortable but sustainable.
Yeah.
So I think like we are creative artists, we're performing artists. Like comfort, we want to be safe, but we're not going to be comfortable because that's why we are putting this art in front of audiences, so we can go through these experiences to teach somebody something or give them an experience, and when they walk the theater, hopefully there's some we changed.
Well, it was
So-
very honest.
Before you do another performance, I was reading an
Front
interview
Porch
with...
Collective, we
I
haven't
know,
asked
we're going to get
Maurice.
to that. But Michael R. Jackson, he said a really interesting thing, which I thought was perfect, and Maurice said, like, your thoughts on it. He described, depending on who's sitting in the audience, that it's either a mirror or a window, which I thought so captured. Can you flesh that out a little bit? You're smiling.
No, I love that you said that because I've stolen that quote. I've
Oh, you
given him
have?
credit,
Okay.
but I've stolen it pretty much since day one of rehearsal.
Okay.
So I think it encapsulates this, but also larger on a larger level, like culturally specific art in the general sense. Anything that's culturally specific, be a play about Asian life or a play about what it is to be a woman in America, whatever. It's oftentimes a mirror, so people who share those identities see themselves reflected back, or a window for people who don't share those identities, but get a glimpse into what life might be like with people who share those intersections. And in this case, our hope, well, my hope designing is that if if someone doesn't share the experiences or can relate on a personal level what happens on stage, their next time they're on these streets, maybe even outside of this library, and see someone who looks like an usher, maybe they'll have the slightest idea of what that person might be going through. Think they have a glimpse of something they may be thinking, and give them a little bit more love or just a little bit more space.
Yeah.
Don't go up to anybody and hug. It's like, oh my God, you're my usher. Don't do that. But maybe they need a little space, or maybe they need a little more understanding.
Well, you stole it from Jackson. I'm stealing it from you. Before there's another performance in a second here, as Marty said, tell us a little bit about the Front Porch Arts Collective. We've talked to you about it in the past, but you have a gala also in May, do you not?
We do.
So fill us in.
Thank you for asking that question. Yep, we gala May 13th. May 13th? May 13th. Gala, it's City Space, so we're very much in gala planning. The mission of the Front Porch is to platform stories about the variety of intersections and narratives and experiences that fall under the umbrella of what it is to be a Black person, right? Because we know there's no one narrative. There's so many different ways and intersections of being Black. And that's what we built this company to show, the wide breadth of experience for anyone who says that they are part of the African diaspora. And the idea is sharing it to diverse audiences. Some people who share those cultural identities, people who don't, we're all welcome. We say everybody's welcome to the cookout, but we're making the potato salad, and so that everyone's welcome. So hopefully, we're creating a more tolerant Boston. If you can see an experience that's not like yours, but empathize, and like Michael Jackson said, that emotional truth is there. You may not have the literal connection, but you have the emotional connection. Realize we're all humans. We're all having similar experiences. Just the nuance of culture is something very specific. That's what we're
Kai, do you want to rejoin your colleagues while we broach one more thing? We really can't. By the way, what do you perform? Well, before you, Maurice can tell us what you're performing in a second. What are they performing?
They're going to perform the song "Inner White Girl," which is
I got a kick out of this.
Yeah, it's great. It's a tribute to Michael R. Jackson, saying that his Holy Trinity is, I believe, the mother is Joni Mitchell, the daughter is Tori Amos, and Liz Phair, and the Holy Spirit is Tori Amos. And that's his Holy Trinity of inspiration from those, particularly in the late '90s white rock stars.
Can I say, one thing I was remiss, because we love this theater too. You should just talk about intimacy. There's
close.
no seat where
Yeah.
you don't feel like you're with the player. Can you spend 30 seconds on how great a venue this is?
I love working in the BCA. It's my first time directing there. And people know that I love the tech rehearsal, which is when you really take in the space and all the elements of the design and the lighting, and then having that in that beautiful space in the right in the Wimberley is it's breathtaking. As an actor, you just feel like connected. It's big enough that you can get a good crowd in there, but it's not overwhelming. It's intimate enough where you can actually see people's faces.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
here is the fabulous cast, all of it, from A Strange Loop performing Inner White Girl.
On days his blackness feels like another hurdle that won't get out of his way. His inner white girl starts kicking like a baby. She wants to come out and play. She doesn't care if she ruffles any feathers. In fact, that is her MO. Where he's the king of avoiding confrontation, there's not a bomb she won't throw. Because white girls can do anything, can't they? Black boys must always obey their mothers. White girls can do anything, can't they? Can they? Can they? Can they? Sometimes he feels like his blackness is a treasure that's under constant attack. His inner white girl protects him from marauders. She always takes up the slack. She lets him feel like a human supernova, like he could conquer the earth, like he's the heir to the power and oppression, her kind of wielded since birth. Because white girls can do anything, can't they? Black boys must always obey their mothers. White girls can do anything, can't they? Can't they? Can't they? Can't they? They get to be cool, tough, vulnerable, and luscious. They get to be wild and unwise. They get to be shy and introspective. They get to be noise. They get to mesmerize. Black boys don't get to be cool, tall, vulnerable, and luscious. Don't get to be wild and unwise. Don't get to be shy and introspective. Don't get to be noise. Don't get to fantasize. His blackness doesn't look blue in any moonlight, which makes him harder to see. That's why he clings to his silly inner white girl, the same one clinging to me. We wanna be free, we wanna belong, we want either love or validation, but neither come easily. So her silent song keeps us in total subjugation. Total subjugation. We wanna be wild and unwise. We wanna be shy and introspective. We wanna be noise. We wanna mesmerize. Why can't we be cool, powerful, and precious? Why can't we express it our own way? Why can't we unleash what's locked inside us? Who made up these rules that black boys have to obey?
That is the ensemble from A Strange Loop. It's showing today through May 25th. To get tickets, you go to frontporcharts.org or speakeasystage.com. That's frontporcharts.org or speakeasystage.com. We've been speaking with Maurice Parent and Kai Clifton. The show is called A Strange Loop, put on by the Speakeasy Stage and Front Porch Arts Collective till May 25th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming in. Once again, for tickets,
Let's hear it again
frontporcharts.org or speakeasystage.com today through the 25th. Up next, Ron Mitchell of the Bay State Banner joins us. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at YouTube.
Every day brings something new. New challenges.
New triumphs.
New wonders.
New innovations.
New stories.
New experiences.
I'm Jeremy Siegel.
And I'm Paris Halstead. Join us each and every morning and we'll discover what's new together.
Listen to GBH's Morning Edition, weekdays from 5 to 10, here on GBH 89.7 and streaming on the GBH app.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Boston Ballet, presenting Carmen. This daring program features the anticipated return of Jorma Ello's Carmen and one of the most celebrated moments in classical ballet, Kingdom of the Shades. On stage now through May 5th. Tickets at bostonballet.org. And Mass General Brigham Health Plan. Innovative plans, coverage, and a broad network of doctors. Mass General Brigham Health Plan, with you every day. For more information, you can visit massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org.
I'm Boston Public Radio producer Aidan Connolly, and you're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR, what matters to you.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Brody and Marge Regan. We're live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Was that spectacular, or was that?
Yeah.
That was
spectacular.
Just spectacular. We're at UMass on Friday, not at the library. You're welcome to join University Hall. We'll be joined by the governor for an hour, former administrator of the EPA, who's from Dorchester, like Kai, and like John King, Gina McCarthy, and a whole bunch of others. We're joined now live at the library by Ron Mitchell. Ron is the publisher and editor at the Bay State Banner. Ron, it's great to see you as always. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to see you guys.
Hello, Ron Mitchell. Okay, so this is one of Jim's favorite topics, and you touched on it in your great column that you wrote for the Bay State Banner. Celtics are on tonight. I didn't know you could bet on when they're going to take timeouts, but apparently you can. Tell us what you said about gambling in sports.
I just wanted to, first of all, let me start off by saying thank you so much. Good to see you. That last performance was amazing.
Yeah,
wasn't it? Oh,
very
my
good.
God,
Gotta go.
so
It's
good.
great.
Yeah, definitely have to check it out. In our paper, we like to talk about different things socially around the country that are affecting our community, and gambling is a big deal. I know that you can't put the genie back in the bottle, and I know that there is certain revenue and support that industry can bring to certain sports, but you got to really, be careful because it's an addiction. And when the system and all the high tech and all the advertising is telling you can win a second, you can win in a minute, you can win. Come on, bet. It has a chance to dilute the game. And then we see players who are getting caught up in it.
Oh, yeah. We're getting abused.
Yeah. And refs, there were some refs as well. I don't mean this season, but in the past, refs have not been immune to, the gambling addiction and throwing games and changing, the outcome of major games. It's something we have to be careful.
You mentioned your piece, and as Margaret, this is one of my pet. I was against the casinos. I don't like the lottery. And I know
taxation
it's a freedom
without
thing.
representation.
No, really, but it is. I mean, the lottery, for example, is Robin Hood in reverse. Poor people play the lottery. Far greater percentage of their income goes to it. And you make the point, which I admire you for, because most people aren't. It's because it's easier for legislators to create something like this that is, quote, voluntary, than to stand up and say, we're going to do a fair taxation thing to support your cop and firefighter and social worker and that kind of thing. One of the things that troubles, we talked to Andrea Campbell about gambling the other day. She put together this task force with all the pro teams, and they're trying to do public education. The place they have not gone, and she says there's some issues that make it difficult. To me, the biggest problem with sports gambling is when you're a kid and you turn on the TV and you see your favorite athlete telling you to go gamble, the likelihood is you're going to go gamble. You buy their jersey because you love them. They say they like this gambling site. You go do it. And we talked about why isn't that, I mean, they took on cigarette ads, government did, and we don't see those anymore. Wouldn't that be a reasonable step? It doesn't solve the whole problem, but at least would take away the enticement from the young would-be sports gambler.
It definitely is an option for reducing the amount that people gamble. But I also think that, as I said, I think the genie is out of the bottle.
So what would you do? What do you do?
You require the companies that run the industry. They do tremendous amount of calculations and all sorts of research to help people and encourage people to gamble more. They can take that same technology that they have to identify problem gamblers and shut them off. Period. End of point. It shouldn't necessarily be self-regulation, but they have to build those safeguards into the system. That's the only protection we have, because I don't believe that legislatively, the legislation or even national or statewide has a legislation to back up from where we are now. I don't think that's realistic. But I think that we can require, through legislation and other things, a certain level of automated protections against folks who are problem gamblers.
Let me just say, in terms of gambling, then I'll leave it so I don't drive Marjorie nuts. I don't know about who's doing the sports gambling, except that it's wildly successful, which means tons of people are losing money, or else it wouldn't be successful. As of a few years ago, we were the #1 per capita lottery playing state in the United States, not by a little, but almost by double the #2 jurisdiction. I think it was Washington, D.C. So this state and its people really take to gambling, and obviously the only way this works for the state is if you lose your money.
Well, listen, state lottery, it's very hard to figure out how you can socially justify the folks who pay into it. But gambling's been happening, Jim, just many years.
It's true, just not legally. I agree with that.
And I think that the trend to make it legal and and have society benefit from it was a good thing. But I also think that safety is the key, moderation, and it's a hard industry to monitor. It's just we have to require that the companies that have all these algorithms to maximize the amount that somebody bets, to have them also maximize the ability to cancel those problem gamblers. I mean, people are going to do the lottery. I don't think there's anything. Everybody's hoping for that, 1 in a million ticket or 1 in a billion ticket, some of the numbers, and I get it. But
you betting on the Celtics tonight?
I don't really bet that much. I bet on my business. I bet on myself. I bet on my kids.
I think that's a safer
tuition
bet.
bills,
Okay,
but I think one of the problems is people who wouldn't normally have bet before are betting now.
That's a very good point.
On sports games, because it's so easy to do.
I will confess, I don't bet on sports, but when that national lottery gets up to $1 billion,
yeah, that's right.
I throw in with some people and dream the dream,
So, as people remember Rachel Rollins, she was the first black woman to be DA of Suffolk County, U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts, and she got in trouble because she was involved in this influencing the race for her successor for the Suffolk County DA. But before she got in trouble, she did some incredible stuff as Suffolk County DA involving people who had been wrongly sent to prison for years and years and years. So now she's got a new job at Roxbury Community College. Tell us about it.
Well, she has been a warrior for the incarcerated and for criminal justice from the very beginning of her career. And now she is at RCC running developing a program that will help incarcerated folks with education and reentry into our society, primarily for women. And, this is really what her passion has always been. I talk about in my article about many of the other things that she's done over her career, and that it's just the right opportunity for her. She's the right person to do it. And we have a serious problem. Men and women coming out of, the recidivism rate in our state is lower than many other states, but it's a serious issue. And we have to give people an avenue for success. Our society has often put, challenges ahead of folks of color that other folks don't necessarily have. And everybody has to be responsible for where they end up. But this is an opportunity for those folks who may have made a mistake to get into a program, and I think she's the right person to design that program.
Well,
Jim, do I see apprehension? Do I see apprehension in your face, Jim?
No, not at all.
Okay,
First of all, I think people know, and this will upset some, I am a huge fan of Rachel Rollins. I think it's a great loss not to have her. She made some mistakes. And when you say, you were talking about the people she serves at RCC who deserve a second chance. The question is, does she not deserve a second chance? And I have to say, this is no secret. I've said this here before. One of the things I admire about Rachel Rollins when she was DA and U.S. Attorney, she never turned down an opportunity to talk about anything with us and others, no matter how controversial, which is rare in public figures. But I don't like the fact that she hasn't talked about what caused her to step down. And I think the way most of the public, except for really hardcore jerks, to say, of course she deserves a second chance, of course. I mean, she changed the criminal justice system, not just here in Suffolk County, but all across America.
How many people get out? Like 9 people?
Well, no, I'm not talking about
jail for decades?
I'm not talking about the people who were exonerated, like the Sean Ellises of the world. Deal. I'm talking about the minor crimes thing that she ran on, got 70% of the vote. It proved that it reduced recidivism despite all the crap from like the Cape Cod DA, but not that she needs to take advice from me. I think she's got to speak publicly about what happened to her. And I think this is a forgiving public, particularly when someone has so much to offer as Rachel does, at least in my estimation.
I agree with you 100%. I've known Rachel for a long time. Our children went to the same high school together for a couple of years, overlapping. Yes, applause for Rachel, no, definitely. And I think she's a brilliant attorney, and she's an advocate for the community and for the folks criminal justice reform is a big issue in our society, and she has approached it in a way that got her a lot of enemies. And I also think that Boston media overall likes to bring down and tear down our heroes. And I think that, getting her, I think this shouldn't be her only second chance. I look forward to her getting back, into the saddle and doing some political justice
But
stuff.
I want to be clear. You mean
Not just with,
you don't have to forgive what she did.
No,
I mean,
but-
everybody screws up big time, and I'm not minimizing at all. Marjorie and I have discussed this on the show only 10,000 times. I think I speak for Marjorie. Unless you do the most egregious of things, if you're willing to look someone straight in the eyes or someone's and say, I screwed up, I made a big mistake, or whatever it is, here's why, please give me a second chance. My sense is people, for the most part, even in this polarized time, are pretty forgiving.
Well, I think when it first happened, it was probably very difficult for her to come out. And
yeah.
as an attorney,
I'm sure.
What do you always tell your client if you're an attorney? Shut up.
Yeah.
Be quiet. Let me do the talking for you. So I think that after that, there was a level of, not that there was any illegality or, worry about being prosecuted for anything. I just think that it was painful for her.
I think that's probably true.
But I do encourage her to come back out now. And I think if you guys extend an invitation to her, I would not be surprised at all.
Can I tell you, we have and we will again. Rachel Rollins, if you're listening, any day,
I will
you're
reach out to
welcome
her
on
on
the
your
show.
behalf.
So we're talking to Ron Mitchell of the Bay State Band. So I think you've done some changes.
Yeah, we got
Tell
a
us
lot of
about-
new stuff going
tell
on at
about
the
some of
paper.
the new stuff going on at the paper.
All right, well, today, we just received our first new version of our paper. We bought the paper, as many of you know, a year ago from Mel Miller, about 14 months ago from Mel Miller. He founded in 1965, and it was always what they referred to as a tall tabloid, and we have converted the paper into a broadsheet, which is the same format as the Boston Globe, New York Times, Washington Post, so it's a lot taller than it traditionally was. It has sections now where so it's a little bit more informative, there's a lot more space, and that's one of the major things that we've done. We have our one-year gala coming up, our one-year anniversary gala.
We'll be there.
On June 6th in Nubian Square. We did a similar event last year at the JFK Library to honor Mel Miller when we purchased the paper. And this is our one-year anniversary of the purchase. It's not, a few months after, of course, but this is our one-year anniversary celebration. And it's going to be in Nubian Square on June 6th in the evening. And we look forward to folks coming out. You can buy tickets at baystatebender.com online. You can also stream many of our art gallery events. We do all sorts of stuff.
Explain some of the art stuff. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, you got it.
Did you change the art gallery? I thought you did something different with the art gallery.
Well, the art gallery is now sponsored by the city of Boston. It has been for a couple of months now.
Okay.
But what we did do with our virtual art gallery is we had a wonderful event at the Museum of Fine Arts. We had 7 or 8 of the top African-American artists from the country, Paul Goodnight, Rob Freeman, Lamerche Frazier, Aqua Holmes, and a whole bunch of others talk about their art in the Coke Gallery, which is this beautiful Victorian art gallery. So it was African-American artists in colonial spaces, and these very successful artists talked to younger artists about their careers and how they became successful. We've just been doing so much at the paper recently as well. We took a whole series. There were 3 Boston basketball teams that won state championships this year in different divisions. And we took all 3, 48 kids and their coaches to a Celtics game about a month ago. We paid for it all with some wonderful support from Catalyst Ventures and Norfolk Investment.
Which teams?
Ed Kane. It was the Cathedral High School basketball team.
Good.
It was New Mission High School basketball team. And the last one was Charlestown basketball.
Didn't Mayor Wu honor the teams
Two male
as well?
teams and a female team.
Yeah, I mean,
and the mayor honored them with the parade about a week before.
That's
and then
right, a parade.
We took
That's
them.
great.
They gave them a wonderful parade and a rally.
That's a
at City
big
Hall
deal
Plaza.
to win the state championship.
Listen, both of my kids are sports kids and basketball kids, and for anybody to get to that level of success, it's an important thing, and it helps to, sports helps character in a whole bunch of ways, and we wanted to honor these kids and provide them the opportunity to see what that professional, sports scene was like. Not that any of them will really get there, but you just want them to understand that their commitment is rewarded, and, it's a really good program. Our paper also does, we talked about a program recently, No Books, No Balls, which is a great story that came out about a program that's sponsored in Roxbury where students not only do they get an opportunity to play in a basketball league, but their grades matter and all of that. So it's a well-rounded, program that they created there. So that's another thing. We don't just talk about the public, but we talk about the community as well. And there's just so many things to talk about what we're doing.
How's the paper doing 14 months in? Honestly, how you doing?
We're doing well. we're doing well. I mean, our sponsorships have grown. The Boston Foundation is sponsoring our business section.
Great.
Just recently, the Crafts Foundation has come in and is now sponsoring sports, which used to be sponsored by Cruise. So we want to thank the Craft Foundation. This is our first paper with them as our sports sponsor. And then Cruise Construction, who's with Cruise Companies, who's been with us a long time, are now sponsoring the arts and culture section, which was never sponsored before. So these types of sponsorships and community partnerships help to anchor our paper and get more, information into the community.
Yeah,
so
good
we're really
for you.
excited about that.
Because it's not easy now running a newspaper these days. It's not easy at all. So I don't know if you're hopeful, but the headline on your piece about Donald Trump is the felonies have finally caught up to Donald J. Trump. I don't know. I'm wondering if they're ever going to catch up.
Cautiously
with Donald J.
optimistic.
Trump. Okay.
Why are you
Tell us why you're cautiously optimistic.
I hate to say it out loud, but I mean, it's like the how long can he, continue to thwart justice without being? If it wasn't tragic, it would be hilarious. The problem is that he's been able to bamboozle a whole, third of our country, with false claims. I mean, he's got some support from, his friends over in Moscow and a whole bunch of other,
He's got more support from black voters than he had allegedly. You don't buy that?
Listen, I don't know who is at home answering the surveys. Any black person I know is working, but no one's at home to answer those surveys.
By the way, when I say black voters, it's not black women. Black women are the people who elected
never
Joe
fall
Biden.
for this
It's
stuff.
mostly black men. Why do you deny that that's
I don't
real?
think the numbers are significant enough to make a difference. I also think that most black men who vote are intelligent enough to read and understand the facts. Now, again, there are folks who have other priorities, and it's not a judgment thing. Everybody can have their own priorities. But I think when you look at what he does long-term for the country as far as rolling back civil rights, rolling back women's rights, rolling back economic rights, rolling back environment, and God knows what he would do internationally with real crises going on like we have in the world.
Yeah.
He's bought, I try not to talk too much about him, but since you asked the question.
Well, you wrote the damn thing.
I did. And
so,
again, I think that recently he lost the vote against the funding to Ukraine.
Yep.
That to me was just one more pendulum in the reflection of his power. That showed that he has now lost power. And after he lost it, we didn't really mean, it wasn't that big deal. Of course it was a big deal.
That's pretty good.
I was just going to say. By the way,
it was huge. No,
that's the way he does it with the hands, right? They're out, they're in, they're out, they're in.
This is the Ron Mitchell analysis. If you didn't see the White House Correspondents' Dinner the other night,
it was hilarious.
Colin Just, who does with Michael Che, does Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. He was the whatever you call it, the MC, the host, the comedian, the whatever. This is just one line. He is assessing the state of the race between Biden and Trump, and here's part of what Colin Just had to say.
There's an election 6 extremely long months from now. So let me see if I can summarize where this race stands at this moment. The Republican candidate for president owes $500 million in fines for bank fraud and is currently spending his days farting himself awake during a porn star hush money trial, and the race is tied?
That's a pretty good line, but it's other than leaving out the rape finding in a civil proceeding, that pretty much sums up the state. So in the last minute we have, or last 30 seconds we have, why is so much of the public saying this is the man? I mean, I know we're 6 months away. Why are they saying that?
If you look at the re-election campaign for many Democrats and where re-election campaign for an incumbent was this far out, they're also behind. I also think the folks that they're surveying are the most fringe elements, the folks who aren't really going to come out to vote. I think his war on women's rights and women's freedoms is going to bite him. I think that if you look at every single election that we've had since the overturning of Roe v. Wade,
that is true.
The Democrats have won.
That is true.
I haven't, maybe there might be one or two small state elections that I'm not aware of, but any major election, the Democrats have won. And I understand it's going to be on the ballot in Florida. It's going to be on the ballot in many of the crucial states. So that is going to bring voters out. I don't believe that you could turn the rights back on a whole nation and not be held accountable, especially when they have all the other things that Colin just talked about. I don't know. Call me an optimist.
Okay. No, we need some optimism here, so I'm very glad you have some.
Yeah. Well, again, I want to make sure you guys talk about, Jim, you told me last time, say that website.
What's the website?
BayStateBanner.com.
BayStateBanner.com.
And don't forget, we have our 1-year anniversary gala, June 6th, the Nubian at the Bowling Building in Nubian Square, and I know you guys will be there.
We're going. Yes, we are.
And one great thing about that is that we're going to be providing 50 high schools throughout the state, public high schools, with a Black Facts educational tools, which is a subscription that they get. It's a whole Black History, I don't want to call it curriculum, but a whole Black History set of educational tools. We're going to be giving it to 50 schools for 2 years, 50 needy high schools throughout to encourage Black History education.
That is a great
Ron,
idea.
we look forward to being there, and we look forward to having you back again. Thanks so much for your time. Ron
Thank
Mitchell.
you very much. We've been speaking with Ron Mitchell, publisher and editor of the Bay State Banner, baystatebanner.com. I got it right? baystatebanner.com. Okay. Up next, Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung. She's with us next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library. It's Asian Restaurant Week, and Shirley's going to tell us all about where we should be going. 877, no, I don't get the number now. I'm not taking calls yet. Shirley Leung is next.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, national advocates, some of them celebrities, are speaking out against the expansion of private jet service at Hanscom Airfield, saying it could harm historic sites. Patients at local hospitals are dealing with long waits for mammograms. And North End restaurants are protesting the neighborhood's exclusion when it comes to outdoor dining. Those stories and all the day's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Tanglewood, the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, bringing Beethoven, Broadway, and more to the Berkshires. You can plan your summer at tanglewood.org. And the Hanover Theater, presenting Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. Directed by Bartlett Shear, Richard Thomas will play the role of Atticus Finch in this Broadway national tour, May 3rd through 5th at the Hanover Theater. Tickets at thehanovertheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy, Marge Regan, live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. As I'm sure you know by now, we won't be here on Friday. We have a special show at UMass Boston University Hall. Governor joins us for an hour and a whole bunch of other wonderful people. We're joined now by Boston Globe business columnist Shirley Leung, and she's not only the host of the Say More podcast, she also has just leased an EV, and she texted me yesterday to say, I don't know how to start it. Other than that, she's all in. Shirley Leung, it's great to see you. Thank you so much.
Oh, my God.
What happened?
Well, yeah, tell us now.
Well, you've had this happen to you.
I have.
So it's a thing with EVs. So
what'd you lease?
So we decided to lease a Hyundai Ioniq 5.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like one of their compact SUVs.
Uh-huh.
And, in large part because, to help the environment, but also incredible deals. I mean, there's $13,500 in federal and state credits.
On a lease?
On a lease. And so I love the car. I love the car on the highway. It accelerates. Acceleration is incredible. It does drive a little bit like a golf cart, right? in town, because you have to keep your foot on the pedal. You get used to it. But apparently, so we also took advantage of installing an EV charger at home.
Oh.
Again, we got a rebate, like a $700 rebate for setting up a fast charger at home. So we charge it at home, and that's where the problem started. Apparently, after you charge at home, if you don't do something or another, the car might not start. It starts. It powers on, right? But it won't go. It won't drive. It just stays in neutral because it thinks you're still charging. And so you had to press a button and do this, do that, get out of the car, close the door, come back, almost like hitting the restart button.
It's very different. My son-in-law has one of these Ioniqs.
Can I read the text?
And I just love it.
Here's the text I get from Shirley yesterday afternoon. Has this happened to you, Jim? After charging a Tesla, is it stuck in neutral mode and would not start? It happened to me this morning. Can I read the rest of this?
Yes, yes.
And it took me 15 minutes to turn it on. I was going to have a heart attack. Kid late for school. I still don't know how I did it.
Yeah, I still.
That is the business columnist for the Boston
I'm a little
Globe.
nervous, and my husband usually freaks out. He was laughing, he was laughing at me, and this week is MCAS for fifth graders, so
Oh
he's
my
going to
God.
be late for MCAS.
Oh my God.
Luckily, he was only a couple minutes late, so it's fine.
And when it starts, you don't know what you did, right, to make it start. That's what happened to me. I have no idea when it wouldn't start.
Yeah, because we went online and looked at, there's all these YouTube
me too,
videos,
me too.
and I think it's something to do with, if you don't, after charging, if you send it into some mode.
Yeah.
Some mode where
Some mode, yeah.
Some mode. And
Yeah,
so
sure.
I think next time, so we'll see what happens.
Well,
later
welcome
this
to the
week.
club.
You know what's so
actually.
neat about electric cars? There's many things neat about electric cars, but when I watch them leave my house when they come over with the grandkids and stuff like that, they silently take off up the street, because there's no noise from,
It's very
these
quiet.
cars, and the acceleration is unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
So.
but you don't realize as soon as you take your foot off the acceleration, it starts slowing down. But
it's like a golf cart.
Yeah,
So.
but I have to say I
like it
love
so
the car.
far.
And it's got a lot of room.
Yeah, it's got a lot of
Big,
room.
the big thing on the dashboard.
Right, and then also my husband showed me this morning. He's like, he popped the hood. I guess.
Listen to you.
He popped the hood. I think this is the same in Tesla too. There's like storage space.
Yeah.
In
It's
the
called
front
the
of the car.
frunk.
The frunk. Yeah.
Front.
Is that
Trunk.
there's a name?
The frunk. Yes.
I was like, what is this? This is so
Because there's no
funny.
engine, right? No.
Yeah, or there's
combustion
enough
en-
room
Yeah.
that you can have storage in the frunk. Frunk.
That's right. Frunk in the back. Okay,
So-
Shirley Leung. So let's get back to something we talked a lot about with you because you live in Milton, where Milton rejected the change in law, which would have changed zoning laws to allow more housing built. Now people up in Rockport are challenging this so-called MBTA zoning plan. And I'm wondering if this is going to be contagious.
Oh yeah, it's not just Rockport, it's also Marshfield.
Right.
They're also rebuffing the law. This is the law that the state wants. If you have transit, MBTA, if you have a train or commuter rail and that services your town, you have to zone for more housing. And back in February, we had a special election, a referendum, and the voters of Milton voted it down. I voted yes, but many of my fellow neighbors voted no. And actually yesterday, we had another town election, and the no side, they're gaining power. The select board chair, who was, I think he was the swing vote. He was a yes in the yes campaign. So
The selectmen voted for it. The
selectmen
voters voted against
right,
it.
the selectmen board voted for it. It passed town meeting, and then there was a special referendum to overturn that decision. And so he got ousted.
Oh, really?
And so
I didn't
someone
know that.
from the no camp is now on the select board, and then the planning board chair, who is a no person, she got reelected. And so they've deepened their ties in Milton. And Milton, of course, we voted no. We've been, and now we're going to court with, the Attorney General has sued the state to comply, and now it's going to be heard by the SJC in October.
Yeah, I want to talk about that for a second. Andrea Campbell, when she was here, we asked her about Milton, and she said her office is talking to them. I don't know what that means, but she's talking to them. The thing that is really troubling, and I don't mean to equate our state's highest court to the Supreme Court, except in this one way. We've talked about the lack of urgency in the Supreme Court of the United States when it comes to the immunity claims of Donald Trump. Listen to this paragraph in a piece in your paper by Travis Anderson. He, a single justice on the SJC, scheduled oral arguments in October, not in May, as the Attorney General had hoped. There's the parallel. That means a final ruling may come during or even after the fall town meeting season, when 130 municipalities are due to consider zoning that the law requires. I mean, to me, isn't that irresponsible? I mean, it's sort of like what Marjorie says all the time, is how can people not know the outcome of the insurrection-related charges against Trump before they decide to vote for or against Donald Trump. How can people in 130 municipalities in town meeting not find out if the law is illegal, essentially, before they vote? You know, and it seems to me, it's maybe I'm missing something, but the lack of speed is troubling.
It is, and I think you're going to start to see a lot of towns like Marshfield say, you know, why do we need to do anything? Let's just wait till October and see what happens.
Yeah.
We're getting a text from a listener in Newbury who says that, she's from Arlington, I guess, but Newbury last night voted to support the housing initiative.
Oh.
Yeah, so I
some
guess,
are no.
Andover did too. Jamie told us. Some are. Yeah.
There are a lot of towns. There are more towns that support the MB2 communities law than do not. I mean, Milton was the one exception, you know, in that first round.
You know what? I'm sorry to quote myself, but why not? The thing to which I've never gotten a good answer from anybody, and this is not a criticism of them, because maybe there's not a good answer, the governor, the attorney general, the law is mandatory. We all agree. Everybody uses that term. If it's mandatory, why do people locally get to vote? And the example I picked, if there's a criminal law that says you're not allowed to break into people's houses, we've mentioned this to the attorney general, you don't get to vote about whether or not you like people breaking into houses or not. It's the law. You've got to comply with it. And I really don't understand why people are voting to begin with. It's a state mandate, isn't it?
It is, but I think there are several dozen cities where, in towns, where because of the way the town meeting law was created, that we actually can reject it and go to referendum.
Well, but every single city and town affected, all 177 are getting to vote. Not all of them have comparable provisions.
No, I don't. I think it's there's a category. There are certain towns that get to reject it for some reason, or maybe what's different is that these towns, what's happened is that these towns, it's passing town meeting, but it also passed in town meeting in Milton. Then there was a referendum to reject it. So I don't know how many of those towns who passed it, if they can reject it like we did.
Why should I listen to you if you don't even know how to start your EV? I mean, now that I think about it, why do I even care what your opinion is?
It's tricky, though. It's a whole different system. I get it. You know, I couldn't get it in gear. I had to get...
Oh, the EV you're talking about.
Yeah, the EV. You have to learn how to do it. So I want to get to... I love this column by Joe Vernacchi, because I was with Monica Tibbetts Nutt. She's the one that Transportation Secretary. She was talking about possibly having tolls for people from New Hampshire coming into Massachusetts. Why? Because they're living up in there in New Hampshire, coming into Massachusetts, get these Massachusetts salaries, then going back to New Hampshire. Good. Put a toll on them. But Maura Healey has backed right down immediately.
Well, so Secretary, the Transportation Secretary, she made these remarks at, a very friendly crowd. I think it was about walking.
Yeah, Walk Massachusetts.
And she says this, and as if it were the policy of the Healey administration, and it was, I think went on the Boston. It was big news in the Boston Herald.
Huge.
And then Governor Sununu up in New Hampshire, weighed in, and so I think even a candidate for governor also.
Yeah, Kelly Ayotte, stop already. She's the Republican, former senator, candidate for governor on the Republican. Her whole campaign is anti-Healey and anti-Massachusetts, even though she's not running for governor of Massachusetts. But go ahead.
But Monica Tibbetts Nutt, her whole point was that the T is in trouble, and we need as much money as we can.
We do.
And so, but Healey, for some reason, felt the need to make very clear that's not the policy of this administration. But
I think New Hampshire should pay for the T. That's what I think.
But the interesting, I mean, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Secretary, Tibbetts Nutt, is the chair of the task force that was appointed to look at all financing options for the T.
Yes.
So the sense that I got was these are some of the things that could be on the table. So the question is, we can ask Healey this on Friday, if this commission came back and said, we want to put tolls on the border leading to New Hampshire, would she reject it?
Right.
Or does she just want that commission to rule rather than one person, her secretary, speaking out?
It's probably more that, because
Maybe.
I don't know, because we've talked, I mean, congestion pricing is coming to New York City, where if you drive into the city of New York, you're going to pay
a lot of money.
A lot of money. So
as Joan Bernanke points out in her piece, the governor, Kathy Hochul, said, hey, you can walk backwards down the street in heels faster than most trucks can drive now. You're paralyzed. So I thought she was standing behind it. And I don't know what the furthest metro train or T goes to New Hampshire. I don't know how far up they go. But if the T worked better and the trains worked better, you could have people leaving their car at some place in Massachusetts that work here from New Hampshire and taking the train in and taking the T in if the thing operated. I mean, it's a life changer to have a working T as opposed to a non-working T. So.
Okay, can we talk about what I'm really most interested in talking about?
Restaurants.
The first ever Asian Restaurant
already.
Week,
Yeah.
May 3rd to May 11th. Tell us about it there,
Yes,
Shirley Leung.
it's something that the NAAP, it's a Asian American professional group in town. They are launching this. I think they're working with Meet Boston, they've got a lot of different Asian restaurants participating. If you go there, you can get stamps, you can participate, and if you collect enough stamps, then you can win a prize. But I love the mix of restaurants, banh mi. A lot of banh mi, BONME, a lot of their locations.
What do you like about banh mi?
Well, it's the Vietnamese.
It's MI, isn't it, by the way? Isn't it?
Well, no, that's there's banh mi, and then there's banh mi places, BANHIMI.
Oh, right, of
so
course,
right. So
that's
that's the brand. Banh mi is the brand. But anyways, there's a lot of Vietnamese food, a lot of banh mi sandwich places, a lot of sushi like Fuji, a lot of locations around the region.
Fuji Saturday night, I was there.
Right, and then also, of course, Mei dumplings, Pagu in Cambridge, Shanti, which is Indian food in Dorchester and Rosendale, Shoujo in Boston, in Chinatown, and Cambridge. So lots of Asian restaurants. I hope people go out.
Is there a website where you find out what restaurants are participating?
Yes.
What is it?
All right, it's NAAAP
N3 A's P.
Boston.org.
Boston. And by the way,
3 A's?
3 A's, yeah.
NAAAP Boston.org.
Let me explain something. You mentioned the stamp thing. I just read about this thing this morning. Most restaurant weeks, this is the first one for Asian Restaurant Week. Most restaurant weeks, there's like a fixed price that's reduced. That's not the case here. My understanding is if you order a particular dish at any of these restaurants that they identified, you get these digital stamps and you accumulate them, and you can get Asian Restaurant Week swag and that kind of stuff, which is probably going to be fun.
Exactly.
I think it's great. Long overdue, and it's great.
There was a big kickoff Monday at Big Night Live, so I hope everyone goes out and eats every single day of, I guess May 3rd is what, Friday?
May 3rd is Friday. That is correct.
Jim has done more for the restaurant industry in Boston. I mean, he's out 6 nights a week.
Well, for that matter, since you bring it up, I was for the first time the other night with somebody you know quite well, who should remain unnamed, the New Eastern Standard.
Oh, yes.
Which is in the Fenway, which is nothing short of spectacular.
Okay, Eastern Standard.
The old one was great. The new one is greater.
He drove his
No, it's not la-di-da. Everything is not la-di-da, Marjorie. Everything is not. You go to a restaurant, you have a drink, you have an appetizer. It's not la-di-da. The place is great. Okay, podcast there, Shirley.
Yeah, this is going to be a great
more
one.
on the environment. This is Elizabeth Colbert. She's a writer for The New Yorker, won a Pulitzer Prize for her books on the environment. She lives in the Berkshires, and so she has a new book out.
Williamstown, is that where she is?
I think so, yeah. And she has a new book out, and it's, she's known for 300-page tomes on the environment, and this time she wrote an illustrated book really aimed at adults.
A through Z, right?
A through Z.
I love that.
I read the whole thing in it took me an hour and a half, and I appreciated this book because I'm not a climate denier. I'm not a tree hugger.
Well, that's good to hear.
But
You're
I'm not a tree hugger.
Denier.
Yeah, but I'm not a tree hugger either. So
You're
I
not?
felt like this was, this was for someone like me. Like, I just want to know more. How bad is it? What can I do? And some of the things that we pulled out of the podcast episode was about, we asked her about Mars. Should we really go to Mars? Is that the solution? And she's like, no, we should not be going to Mars. We need to figure out Earth. Humans are not. We're not evolved enough to breathe on Mars, and so we need to fix Earth first.
Did she say to you there's no air pressure? We'd all be crushed if we were on Mars.
Well, we're running out of time, too. But anyway, she's more hopeful than some people. So we're going to play a little clip here of your interview with Elizabeth Colbert. You say Colbert, is that how you say it? On the Say More podcast. And she's talking about what Shirley just said, her climate change in her new book.
This issue should be rising above almost any others. And I wanted to reach people who, as you say, aren't going to pick up that 300-page book, but who need to know. This is sort of what you need to know.
Okay, so are you a tree hugger now that you read her book?
I don't know if I'm
Shirley, come on.
I'm not a tree hugger, but I now want to read her other books, and
Okay.
maybe through reading her other books, I will become one. Can I read one more stat?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Because I'm a nerd about data. So one of the things that really jumped out to me about her data was that she said humans have added more CO2 to the atmosphere over the last 30 years
Yep.
as they have over the last 30,000 years.
That's right.
So frightening. And if you think about the last 30 years, there's so much more awareness, yet it's just gotten worse. And so we need to change. The human race needs to change.
I'd start hugging some trees if I were you.
Yeah.
Let me tell
Maybe
you.
I need to do that.
I think you do, actually.
Well, you
And my EV, right?
You got two little kids. You don't want to have
Right.
to make the decision,
Right.
flood or fire.
Right,
That's
right.
not where we want to go, flood or fire.
Well, that's the thing I talked to her about. I said, I'll be okay, but I worry about my kids.
Yeah.
I worry about my
Absolutely.
grandkids, my future grandkids. What will Earth be like? What will Earth be like for them? And so that's why it's like I really need to start caring about this.
Asian
Shirley.
Restaurant Week, May 3rd to the 11th. You go to NAAA, 3 A's, NAAPBoston.org, and you find out what the participating restaurants are. I'm really excited.
Great. And of course, we're doing it because it's AAPI month.
Yes, it is
Month
indeed.
of May.
Yep.
So happy AAPI month. I'm wearing my Year of the Dragon shirt.
Well, actually, it's really
very
great.
nice.
Done the
I
Asian
like
American woman-owned store, Gravitas, the ones that did the newspaper one
yes,
too.
I know.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, that was a great one, too,
yeah,
by the
so
way.
Year of the Dragon.
What's the name of the
shirt.
store?
Gravitas, New York.
That's
So,
great,
Yeah, you can get some cool shirts there. You had
yeah.
a complete newspaper print shirt on that was
Exactly,
great. I absolutely love that.
So Year of the Dragon.
Okay, Shirley, thank
Shirley,
you
it's
very
great to
much.
see you.
The
Thanks
name
for
of the podcast is Say More, and it's a really great podcast. And if you are like Shirley, kind of on the fence on climate change, maybe you should listen to this one too. We've been speaking with Shirley Leung, who is also, of course, a business columnist for the Boston Globe. So, up next, it is Hypocrite Public Radio time. We want to hear about all the little things people do that drive you absolutely crazy. Maybe it's chewing loudly into a microphone, which we have done
Gotta
here
eat.
once or twice here on the radio. Maybe it is something else. Maybe your significant other drags his teeth across the fork when he eats, making a horrible noise. Maybe he does that. We should ask
Wow.
Jared Bowen about this too.
Who the hell's he?
I wouldn't know. Give us a
Okay.
call. Some little annoyances. What drives you crazy? You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, Back to the Future, the musical is going 88 miles an hour on Broadway. We talk to the lead actors, Tony nominee Roger Bart, starring as Doc Brown, and actor Casey Likes, who embodies Marty McFly. From there, we ditch the high-speed DeLorean and slow down our pace with a preview of the first ever Joy Walk, an art crawl through Boston. That's on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And S&H Construction, committed to building spaces that work and providing professional management to guide the process. Their podcast, Builder's Notebook, can be heard on all podcast platforms. shconstruction.com. And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Andrew Lloyd Webber, Liz Cheney, Supreme Court correspondent Nina Totenberg, and news anchor Chris Wallace. bostonspeakers.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. We're live at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. This segment is brought to you by Ask Wirecutter, which I did not even know existed. I'm a huge Wirecutter fan. I didn't know about this Ask thing.
Neither did I.
It's an advice column in the Times, New York Times, where one person writes in and asks, "My spouse is the loudest chewer. There's lip smacking and all sorts of mouth noises that drive me crazy. What can I do to help block out these annoying noises?" Wirecutter's answer, of course, you should buy some noise-canceling earplugs, really, and eat your morning cereal in matrimonial bliss. We want to know, what are the little things about your spouse, your partner, your coworker, whoever in your life that drive you crazy? And how have you learned to deal with the tics and sounds of that special person who knows exactly how to push you over the edge? The number to call or text is 877-301-897. Is it lip smacking? Is it loud chewing, which we know drives Jared nuts? Falling asleep at the defendant's table during a trial? Or is it, I'll tell you what's at the top of my list, by the way.
What?
When people, and I've been out with you where I've actually dealt with this, I'm fairly proud to say, when people are talking loudly on their cell phones in public places where there are a lot of other people around, as if they're the only people on the planet.
You went and accosted that gynecologist.
I didn't, was it a gynecologist?
It was a gynecologist, because that's where we knew he was a gynecologist. He was talking so loud on the phone about his...
I was talking about, it's true, you're right.
His practice, and you went over there and basically attacked him.
I wouldn't say I attacked him. I verbally asked him to stop doing it. It was in a restaurant, was it not?
It was at a restaurant.
And he stopped. 877-301-8970. What is the sound? What is the thing, a behavior that somebody in your life, regardless of how close the relationship is, does that drives you nuts? What's what's your thing? Oh, here she goes. I don't know. I don't know if I have one.
Bad table manners are tough for me. I don't like that. When
like what?
Well, slurping, people making a lot of noise when they eat.
What if you're eating like ramen or something? How are you going to eat the ramen unless you're slurping it in there?
I don't know. Emily Post probably tells you how to do it.
Yeah.
But the idea that you're going to put headphones on and this is going to solve your problem, I don't know. You may just. I mean, the question in the wire cutter is whether you should just put up with this, or whether you should do something drastic like get earbuds or headphones. I mean, I don't think you're going to sit at the breakfast table with earbuds or headphones on. But the things that people list. Slurping and chewing are big things. Gum smacking, sniffling, burping, that's a big thing too. You're not supposed to burp in person. And then some people talk about things, in public. And then things that kind of are maybe indicate that the person listening has a problem.
What's that?
Well, I guess that some people are driven crazy when somebody takes out a bag of potato chips and eats them in the movie theater or on a bus.
Well, that's the whole Jared thing.
Yeah.
That mifepristone. No, it's not mifepristone. What's it called? Whatever it is. That disease he has.
Misophonia.
Right, exactly.
Misophonia.
Well, and misophonia is. And doesn't Jamie have this too? You don't like listening to somebody. Whatever it is. That's their deal.
Yeah.
In any case, apparently, which is actually really inappropriate. Our colleagues.
We're big offenders.
Did you guys pull together?
Yes,
These are us. Oh, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Here are Marjorie and me, allegedly.
Well, it's me actually.
Making mouth sounds every afternoon when we're putting together. This is when
you do it more than I do, but I'm getting picked out here.
What are you talking about?
I'm getting picked on.
Here is allegedly sound
picking on me.
of the two of us, lip smacking, and then there's one cough thrown in. Go ahead.
Okay.
That is made up. That is totally. Occasionally we get caught eating at the end of not commercials. What are these things? Show. We have a 1-minute break. Yeah, I'm eating now. I have this great new sandwich from the Newsfeed Cafe, which is, by the way, it's fabulous. It's like an Italian sub all chopped up, put in a thing.
Here's the one where I get picked on.
What happened?
This is Cy Montgomery. She's on the show last week, and she's defending me, Jim, because I was caught eating my sandwich on the air. It's so good to talk to you.
Oh, my God. Well, look who's eating now.
I know.
Well, lo and behold.
I'm sorry. I was really starving. I had to have a bite of my sandwich.
You go ahead and eat. You need it.
No, it's very rude. It's very rude to people that are listening on the radio. But I couldn't stand it anymore.
That is really rude.
Anyway,
I don't even remember. That was horrible.
Rude. But, in our
like
defense,
your mouth was full.
It's like you're here from 11 o'clock till 2 and there's no break. So you might get a little hungry if you don't really stuff yourself before 11. I'm not really hungry at 11. So anyway.
That's an interesting perspective. So we want to know, what is the behavior of a friend, a lover, a coworker, someone that just puts you over the edge?
Here's a good one, because people feel this way at the movies too.
What's that?
But this texter says, why does the Wang, that's a big theater here in downtown, sell popcorn? Someone ate it so loudly when I saw Hadestown there on Friday, and apparently drove that person crazy.
Well, why does any theater sell popcorn? Because it's good to eat during a performance.
Yeah, it is good to eat during the performance.
So get over it.
And I really eat it like by the handful.
Yeah, you're
I
a
just
big popcorn.
Shove it.
If it's real butter, you shove that right in there.
Yeah, what you have to do is you have to get them to give you a large popcorn.
Add butter part way.
Halfway through, they have to add butter. I add more salt. And then they put the rest of it on, and I add more butter and more salt.
Okay, that's a really
great story. You want it to be greasy in your fingers. And if you get it at home, you can melt the butter in the microwave and then put it on top of the popcorn.
Good story. Mary in a car, you're first on Boston Public Radio. What puts you right over the edge there, Mary? Hi. Okay.
There are three. Actually, Marjorie said something that makes it number 4. But there are 3. 4. before. Picking up a clock, especially when I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah.
The clipping of fingernails or toenails.
Horrible.
Heavy breathing through the nose, and eating rice cakes out of a bag, like that noise. And I make my husband pour everything in a bowl if he's going to eat anything in the same room as me.
Wait a second. I eat rice cakes out of a bag in my car. What's wrong with eating rice cakes out of a...
Well, if you're by yourself, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if I was with you, I would make you put them in a bowl.
Well, you're a tough person. Mary, thank you much for the call. You know what's on her list that drives me nuts? If you clip your nails, fingers or toes,
somebody said,
do them in private.
Yeah.
Do not do it with somebody else sitting around.
Did you read the text?
No, I didn't read the text.
What used to annoy me at work is when my coworker in the cubicle next to me would clip his fingernails and probably toenails
disgusting.
in the office. Remember when we were at the theater the other day?
What theater?
The person was laughing.
Oh, it was Seeing a Strange Loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was one person who really was putting us right over the edge. We were ready to put her over the edge, by the way.
I know.
That was brutal.
Okay, here's one. Aggressive gum chewing.
Yeah, by the way, I agree with that. That's horrible, too.
I know, I chew gum.
Yeah.
I think I
well, there's
keep my
aggressive
mouth
gum
closed.
chewing and there's regular gum chewing.
The sound of cough drops clinking against teeth. And, worst of all, theatrical yawning. That's from Amy in Somerville, says she's unable to relax when she hears these
What do you
sounds.
mean, like excessive yawning? What does that
I
even
guess so.
mean?
When people go, make
Okay,
a lot
fine.
of noise
Let's
when
go
they're
to
yawning with their mouth open really
You want
wide.
to take a call or no?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Katrina in Danvers, thank
Hi,
you.
Katrina.
There, first-time caller, long-time listener.
Thank you so much.
So I'm an auditory person, so little noises drive me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky enough to marry someone who thankfully didn't make a lot of noises because it never would have worked otherwise.
Yeah.
But my sister burps all the time.
Oh, that's
Oh, you're not supposed to do that.
And she can't help it. It's just every 5-10 minutes she's doing this breathy burp, and it makes me insane. I can't spend a lot of time with her. It's so bad.
Did she know this or not?
She knows it. She just doesn't do anything about it. She just has to burp, and she burps.
So how's this affected the relationship, if I may ask,
She
Katrina?
can't spend time with her, she said.
I can't spend a lot of time with her. Just going over for dinner is difficult.
It's like a burpathon, huh? Hey, Katrina, that's a horrible
it's
tale
nonstop.
between two loving siblings. Thank you for the call. We appreciate it.
Okay, Aiden says some people give him grief. He's one of our staffers for making the noise after drinking
Oh, I
something
do that too,
refreshing.
actually. I do too.
And he says it's a natural response, very satisfying. And an anonymous texter says,
What, do you see what he says at the end? Keep reading.
if they complain, I'll do it extra loud.
That's exactly
You
my
and Jim
approach to
should
life
hang out,
too, really.
Hang out together.
Exactly.
You do well.
Thank you.
And then an anonymous texter says, people making noises often moans of pleasure after taking a bite of food. Similarly, that noise when someone who's parched takes a drink of water, completely unnecessary.
Well, that's exactly what the Aiden thing is here.
What do you say all the time when you're eating something that you really like? You have some annoying expression.
Get me more of that. Is that what you mean? No, maybe that's not. Otherworldly. Thank you, Zoe. Zoe's mocking me from afar. in Brighton.
Otherworldly, that's right.
It is. If it's otherworldly, it's otherworldly. What else are you going to say? You know.
Thomas and Quincy, thank you for
Hello,
calling.
Thomas and Quincy. Hey.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Marjorie.
Hey.
What I gotta say, my wife is perfect.
No.
However, she has this annoying thing where she'll like partially use a napkin or a tissue and leave it somewhere around the house.
That's bad.
That's bad.
For her to return to and use again later. And it's just seeing these around, and you'll go to pick something up, like to clean, pick it up, and then they'll be wet.
That's a problem.
Oh no.
She's perfect otherwise. So,
Now,
we
Thomas,
let it slide.
do you tell your wife, gee, sweetheart, would you mind picking up the tissues, or do you just let it go?
I try to. Sometimes I'm like, I'll just do it today. 'Cause she's usually very nice about it. She will apologize.
But don't go away yet, because since we're being honest, I occasionally leave a piece of floss around and intend to reuse it. Does she intend to reuse the things that you discover, or is she just leaving them lying around?
She intends to reuse it, so there's an element of conserving material.
Beautiful, yeah.
I don't know about this reusing floss, Jim. That's a whole.
Well,
nother
thank
level.
you, thank you.
Floss is a one and done.
Yeah, absolutely, Thomas. You are absolutely right. Thank you for the call. The number is 877-301-8970. Here's a couple of texters. I really enjoyed the segment where Jim was choking on hot sauce.
Oh, that's right, a couple of weeks ago.
And talking through it instead of maybe letting Marjorie break in. That was enjoyable.
Well, that
That's
was
from
that
Paul.
great Venezuelan thing that is here a couple times a week. Food was great. I ate too much hot sauce.
Andy in Plymouth says it drives him crazy when I cough and clear my throat on the microphone. You're supposed to put the microphone up, but it makes a lot.
Yeah. Well, cough now with the microphone up. Let's see if we hear it. Yes, we do. Oh, I don't know if I'm hearing it in the microphone or if I hear it in your
You have to
life.
move the microphone so it makes it easier. But I'll think about that, Andy. I'll try not to do it. I don't want you to be I don't want to drive you crazy. Listen to this one. My husband opens cabinets, the fridge, the microwave, etc., with messy hands.
That's how
So instead of nagging, I bought some of those yellow crime scene markers. And when he leaves the handles messy, I put out a crime scene marker
really great.
on the handles. That's pretty good. Somebody says they can't stand loud sighing.
877-301-8970 is the number.
Boy, I must be coughing all the time. Everybody's telling me that I cough.
Well, you do a
before I
little,
start
you do a little
segment.
clearing your throat
Ends a
thing.
segment.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'll do about that.
By the way, if you don't know Marjorie, she's going to carry this with her now for months.
I am.
So, criticize. If someone were to say that about me, I am fine with it. I accept it and I move on.
Well,
Marjorie
I guess if
internalizes
I didn't cough,
it.
I'd be gurgling, so I don't know which is worse. The
Well, I assume
coughing
they're
or
saying,
the
why don't you
gurgling.
cough during the break, is what they're
Sometimes
saying.
you have to cough in the middle. Back in Brighton, though, we have a cough button.
They do.
And that's,
How many times do you use that, baby?
I have used it many times.
You have?
Yes, and I've used it when I've sneezed, and then you say Gesundheit or whatever you say.
Oh, I blow your cover?
And you blow my cover because I've sneezed with the cough button on. I've learned a few tricks here in my radio
Yeah, you really
career,
are
Jim.
incredible.
Okay, let's go to Lisa in the car. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, nice to talk to you both.
And you too.
Well, thank you. So there's two things. My husband, I love him dearly.
Sure you do.
But when he eats, his jaw clicks.
Oh, that's a problem.
Click, 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 click.
Oh.
And I know he can't help it, so I do my best to ignore it, or I'll hum in my head so I don't have to hear it. But what he can help, and he refuses to stop, when we watch TV, he likes me to sit next to him, and he picks his toenails.
Wait a second, Lisa. You have crossed a line that is totally unacceptable. And so what is he, I mean, it's one thing with your jaw clicking, you can't stop that. What do you say to him in those circumstances?
Oh my gosh, I try to be nice. I'll nudge him or I'll give him a look, and he stops for about 10 seconds and then pick, pick, pick. Makes this awful clicking sound. I have to leave the room eventually.
Can I tell you, that is one of the most disgusting behaviors I've ever heard. Lisa, we're really sorry. We feel bad for you. Good luck in the future. Thank you for your call. That is really sad.
Here's an anonymous texter.
What do they say?
I guess Browdus interrupt us doesn't bother Marjorie. That's a pretty good one.
That's funny.
Listen to this. People cracking their knuckles.
I don't. Oh, I haven't. By the way, I used to encounter that a lot when I was younger. It's less in vogue.
Yeah.
In the 2020. Do you do that?
No, I find it very
I was
upsetting.
jealous when I was young that I couldn't crack my knuckles, and then I hated other people cracking their knuckles, and then here we are today.
Paul from Ipswich can't stand whistlers. I work with a woman who would randomly start whistling in the office.
I'm not crazy about that either.
Drives me crazy. I've never encountered that before.
Let's go to Gina in Nahant. I love saying Nahant, by the way. Hi, Gina. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks so much. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I love your show. So when people are drinking and they make that glugging noise, like...
Oh, that's gross. Yeah.
I remember when I was younger, my parents would yell at me for it, and I feel like it's one of those things where once you bring somebody's attention to it,
Yeah, exactly.
then it's like really hard to actually stop, and now my kids do it, and it just drives me crazy.
Gina, let me ask you something. I don't want to make the other woman who just called feel bad. If you were married to the guy she's married to, and you're sitting on the couch watching television, and he's playing with his feet, what would you do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I would tell them to put on some socks. That would drive me crazy.
That's actually not a bad interim measure. Gina, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
Here's an anonymous one. When I open the fridge, my wife immediately asks me, "What are you looking for?" It's as though our 5-year-old son is opening it. I'm sure I can navigate the contents of a refrigerator without a concierge.
Well, a variation. Everybody in my family has me saying before they had a bite of whatever meal I love.
What are you eating?
No, how do you like it? And what is their response? I haven't tried it. And I think that's, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm moving. Let's get moving with this thing. Now, by the way, on this topic, there's, generally what our staff and we try to do is get the perfect guest for the perfect subject. If you, in light of this thing about troubling behaviors, who would you rather have than the king of misophonia, than Jared Bowen joining us, which he's doing right now. Jared, welcome to the show.
No, it's so fabulous to be here today.
Yeah.
Can't tell you how excited I am.
So if I ever go to the theater with you, Jared.
Oh, we don't have to talk about misophonia again.
No,
Let's ask what
chips,
else.
no popcorn,
Nothing.
no gum, no candy, no nothing. I breathe through my mouth. Breathe through my nose. Don't make any noise.
I'll just hook up an oxygen tank for you, so you don't even have to breathe. It does it all for you.
Okay.
So other than this, which we discussed just 2 days ago with you, is there any other behavior that friends or colleagues or lovers engage in that puts you over the edge there, Jared?
It's the only flaw that I have. I did a little research for you,
Please,
just knowing that I had been invited on for this.
Yes.
Do you know who else had this? Some pretty. I'm in spectacular company. I now realize.
Benjamin Franklin.
Chekhov.
Chekhov.
No.
There you go. That's why he wrote all those great short stories.
Okay, who else?
Kafka, who slept during the day so that he could avoid the noises. Proust.
Really?
Proust.
Who created a cork wall so that he wouldn't have to hear the noises.
That's
Oh my God,
fabulous.
from Madeleine.
Anybody else?
Kelly Osbourne.
Wow, well that
there you go.
seals the deal.
I read this all in Neuroscience News, I will have you know.
Wow. So life must be very difficult for you, Jared.
No, it's not that difficult.
Do you have to wear earbuds?
No, it doesn't happen all the time, and
Okay.
I know how to deal with the situation.
If you go out to dinner with people, I realized I was out to dinner with Jared once. Was I annoying you?
No, because when I'm eating it, for some reason, it doesn't affect me.
Oh, okay.
And Marjorie, you know that you could never do anything to bother me, ever. You know that.
Jared,
Oh, that is so
Jared,
beautiful.
I love you, Jared.
Jared, in 10 seconds, what are you doing on the show? Quickly.
We're going Back to the Future with the stars of Back to the Future,
yeah.
the musical on Broadway, one of whom just got a Tony nomination yesterday,
That's
so
pretty
we'll
great.
talk to them.
Enjoy it. Good to talk to you. The king of misophonia, Jared Bowen.
Thank you, Jared.
Bye.
Before we go, Jim,
Bye.
Sean from Boston has a question.
What is it?
He wants to know, is there anything that doesn't annoy Jim Browdy?
Well, actually, the truth be told, no. And what's his point?
I think he's got your number.
By the way, that annoyed
Sean,
me.
that was a great text. Text anytime.
Don't text again, Sean. Go ahead. We're done, Marjorie.
Okay,
It's
we're
over.
done. Thank you very much for listening to
Thank
another
you.
edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 by way of our podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to be joined by NBC's Chuck Todd, former Massachusetts Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral, Michael Curry of the Mass League of Community Health Centers and the NAACP, Shira Schonenberg of the Boston Globe, and our own Kirk Carapezza. You can ask him about the demonstrations.
Yep.
And GBH's, unfortunately, misophonia-plagued Jared Bowen. I want to thank our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John LeClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Thanks to people that came down to the Boston Public.
We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show. Next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Comcast, offering the Xfinity 10G network, designed to provide a connection for home networks so everyone can be online at once, even during peak hours. Xfinity.com. In newly independent India, a passionate literature student is torn between family duty and the promise of romance, as three very different men attempt to win her heart. Don't miss A Suitable Boy tonight at 9 on GBH 44.
Nurturing a sense of community. That's something public media does every day. And Public Media Giving Days are a reminder to support this station, a nonprofit that helps your community stay informed and connected. You are the public in public media and play a critical role in making sure it's available to all free of charge. We can't do it without you, so please donate today and thank you.
Do your part by spreading the news and giving at gbhnews.org.
I'm digital producer Hannah Reale, and you and I are listening to 89.